Welcome now to live action on the 29-mile leg. This is Robert Gesink, Paul. He was involved in that crash with quite a few big names like Valverde. Greipel was down, and now he's got a back wheel puncture. That's luck for you.
Well, it's not an important part of the race. You can see there are a lot of riders just making their way through the convoy of cars. So what Gesink will do will not panic for the moment and ride his way back into... Oh, he's still got a little problem, so I don't think he's quite happy with that wheel change.
Well, as you can see, we've just had a pretty heavy rain shower here, and that's the feature of the day of racing, I think. The clouds blow in, really do dump some very heavy rain, and then it miraculously dries out and the sun comes out. Anyway, he's on his way again. The crash happened very early on today before the cameras were rolling for television, but Greipel, Cantwell, Louis Vester, Gutierrez, Gesink and Perro and Valverde all amongst the fallers. These are the first chance now to see the leaders in full cry, developing early today, an attack by Dave Zabriskie 2.5 miles into the day, and now we've got 4 men in the lead.
Well, Dave Zabriskie, a former winner of a stage in the Tour de France. It was the opening time trial in Noirmoutier in 2005. He's joined by Karsten Kroon in the breakaway. He was also a former Tour de France stage winner on Bastille Day, and that was into Plouay. He's a rider in the blue and yellow jersey of Team Saxo Bank. Also in the break with these four, making up the 4 riders, Romain Zingler of Cofidis in the red jersey and David Malcarne of Europcar.
Yes, Malcarne is a first timer in the Tour de France. The others have been around before, and between them 15 tours experience with that leading breakaway. And Zabriskie is in his 7th Tour de France, and he's on the move today, and maybe a change of tactics here by Tyler Farrar's Garmin Sharp team, because Tyler isn't going to contest the sprint today, and so they put a man out on the attack.
Maybe Zabriskie's presence in that breakaway is just to take away from a little bit of the bad luck the team seems to have had since the start, because their main man, Tyler Farrar, he in fact has been involved in 3 crashes on 3 separate days. So I think he's decided to take a back seat this afternoon, giving a little bit of a free flag for Dave Zabriskie. And he's the kind of rider, kind of strong rider, who could create the surprise and succeed. He's also one of those very rare riders who's won a stage in each of the Grand Tours, the Tour of Italy, the Tour of Spain and the Tour de France.
Well, yesterday, you remember how unlucky the 4-man breakaway was. They were caught in the finishing road up to the line, and Pablo Urtazan, he lost out in just the last 300 metres of the day. Incredibly unlucky not to steal the stage. These are the peloton, and at the front, the boys, the black tops, are all members of the Radio Shack Nissan, and all looking after Fabien Cancellara. I think we can say today, Paul, the last day in yellow for Fabien.
We could probably say that. This is Robert Gesink, number 151.
Yeah, look who's helping him.
He's had a long time trying to get himself back into the main field. Luis Leon Sanchez is the man trying to help him to get back into the main field. The man who's been sitting on the back for the first...
here, and taking back up to the peloton, number 155 there, Luis Leon Sanchez, along with the other man with a broken wrist, Tony Martin, on a different team. They ride along chatting to each other, last men on the bunch every day, in the hope that every day they will feel a little bit stronger.
Well, it wouldn't be the Tour de France if we didn't have the tournesol, which is the French word for sunflower, and it's called tournesol because it turns towards the sun.
Yes, well, where is the sun? We haven't seen too much of the sun yet, so they're spinning around like tops trying to find the sun. This is Jaroslav Popovic on the front, and the other workhorse on Team Radio Shack, as always, Jens Voigt. These are the 2 pacemakers mid-course for the team. They'll move off the front towards the end and allow the others to come. Chris Horner is also there, 5th place in line, next man in black.
Yes, I think.
As always, going to the man in the breakaway. Which one of 4, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Zabriskie sitting at the back looks attentive. This is the small town of Chauvancourt. Number 55 is the département. And the sprint point is only just around the corner, and there is no excitement coming from this group, but there will be excitement coming from the group behind.
Yes, at the moment, sorry about the picture freeze up, but we've released that with our camera waiting up on the finishing line here. 400 meters to go. It's at the moment is Romain Zingler who is leading up, the Belgian rider on the French Cofidis team. Now, if it's his turn at the front when he goes over the line, so be it. But no, can you believe this? Karsten Kroon has decided he's going to make a sprint of it, and he's going to take the 20 points at the front.
Well, I think he's more interested filling the 15,000 euros to put into his back pocket, around about $2,500 US, into the Saxo Bank team Tinkoff Credit Bank.
Yeah, $1,500, I think it was, Paul.
1,500 euros.
Euros.
1,500 euros,
yeah.
sorry. which is $2,500.
It's $2,500. It's about £1,200, and I don't think the team will be the rest of the ride will be too pleased with that, really, as he sprinted clear to get the prizes. But there we are. The others go over the line.
We're very lucky to actually have the finish line there, Phil, because stories go in this area that a while back 7 evil fairies decided to swallow up the village by throwing rocks into the local Meuse and trying to sink the village underground.
Well, maybe they'll try to sink it under the sprint, because when the peloton get up there, we can expect to see Peter Sagan, Matthew Goss, Andre Greipel, perhaps Cavendish, certainly. We've got the 5th place points available, which stand at 11 points, 10, 9, right down to 15th place. So Peter Sagan will have to launch a sprint here, and I think he'll be crossing swords with Mark Cavendish and with Matthew Goss.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that we will see them, and Mark Renshaw has always been very attentive at this point as well, because all of those riders, I do believe, feel that they've got a very good crack. Probably the best competition we've had for the green jersey points competition in a number of years.
I think you're right. It's going to go all the way to Paris, this one. I think, though, the riders who are becoming the standout favourites are the names I've mentioned in Sagan, Goss, perhaps Pataki, but I doubt he's won it before, though, and Mark Cavendish. We'll see. Yeah, does a bit of a dress rehearsal today as we approach the sprint for 5th place.
Well, I noticed the Argus Shimano team in the white jerseys were also getting themselves organised into a good train, and they will be trying to lead their man out. Tom Wieler's the Dutch rider. The acceleration has started very quickly indeed, as we can see.
Well, as they're heading up towards the sprint now, there's no doubt as they sprint for 5th, these boys will catch the breakaway, but for the moment it's all about winning 5th place in the sprint. And we can see on the right, Boysenhagen is leading out Mark Cavendish, 2 white jerseys to the right. Hutrovic is the 3rd man intruding, but Goss has made the wheel choice there. It's a 3-man Sky lead out, and the next man to move off, Edvald Boysenhagen, will make way for Mark Cavendish, but Goss is perfectly positioned. He goes. Cavendish will sense him coming. Cavendish launch. This is shoulder to shoulder, but Matthew Goss, has he got the speed of Cavendish to the line? He may have, and he has. Well, if he could do that at the finish, then Orica Green Edge would get the first stage win.
But he realised the way to try and beat Cavendish was to get the jump on him first, and he got that first little half a bicycle length. Cavendish had to fight all the way back to try and rival him. He couldn't do it on this occasion. 3rd, Peter Sagan, so he's doing a good job in defending his position in the green jersey competition. And Kenny Van Hummel getting up there, maybe possibly just ahead of Peter Sagan for Vacances Soleil.
Well, that'll be interesting, because only a couple of points gained for Matthew Goss. He had 18 behind Peter Sagan before that sprint. I think he may have got 3rd, actually, Paul, which case he's looking for 16. The camera will tell us, and let's have a look. That, I think, is a Sagan victory. But anyway, it means now that Matthew Goss probably knocked off another 2 points. Peter Sagan looking over his shoulder.
I wonder if that was a little bit of a psychological play there by Matthew Goss, or whether Mark Cavendish wanted to let Goss win that one and make him think that he's got the beating of him when it comes down to the finish, because it's a different sprint for the finish line than it is for a sprint halfway through the race.
And let's remember, Cavendish is a man who likes winning stages and not sprints along the road. I think that's the difference. Yes, very exciting, a good sprint there, no doubt about it, as we see the peloton now continue on their way. A few deep breaths. Not something we like to see at the back there, because that is Thomas Voigtler again, sitting at the back, and has been there all day today. In fact, he was off the back at one stage. Well, as it was on day 1, soon after the sprint, we're now going to have a climb of a 4th category hill. Only the winner gets the point, and that's where we're heading to next. Then the 4 riders are ahead of the race. They should make it with plenty of daylight between themselves and the peloton. So we'll take another break now. The sprint is over. Matthew Goss has closed in by a couple of points on Peter Sagan. That competition is really hotting up. When we rejoin, we'll be on the 4th category climb, the last climb and only climb of the day. There's plenty of time for opportunists. I think we'll get those days in the mountains when the favourites watch each other. There'll be a few good climbers slipping away on an escape they hope culminates in victory. There's plenty for everybody in the Tour de France. 1 kilometre, that's 6/10 of a mile to the summit for the 4 breakaway.
Just out of interest as well, Phil, I think this has been the fastest stage of the race so far. 42.5 kilometres in the first hour of racing, 40.5 kilometres an hour in the second hour of racing, for an average so far of 41 kilometres an hour, which is 27 miles an hour. Quite sharp.
27 miles, a very good average speed. They have been helped by this wind, and it's kept, I think, it's been blowing the clouds away from the race as they've approached it too, which has been rather helpful. And the rain has not hit us yet, and in fact in Metz itself we're in beautiful warm sunshine. Let's hope it continues. They're heading up towards the summit now, the work being done by the Belgian on the French Cofidis team, Romain Zingler.
He's the rider in the red jersey, wearing number 69, Dave Zabriskie. He's supposed to be a very good individual time trialist, but in the prologue, his team manager didn't know whether to congratulate him or give him a telling off, because wearing number 69, he finished in number 69th position. And the team manager said, well, maybe you can do a little bit better than that in the long time trial a little later on.
And that comes at the start of next week, so we'll see how he gets on then. He'll have time to recover from his escape today. A nice crowd now forming here on this area of the department of the Meuse.
The Irish flag over to the right-hand side. They're out to support two Irish riders in the Tour de France this year. One of them, Dan Martin. The other one, Nicolas Roche.
That's right, the left-hand side, I think it was, Paul, but you may have turned your chair around.
Oh, I saw one on the right as well.
Oh, did you? I missed that one.
There must be lots of them.
I saw the one on the left. Under the Belgian flags, they're certainly on the right, and the flag of Flanders with the black line on it as the riders continue on. Cheering on these riders, it will get the old adrenaline coursing just a little bit for excitement. Now tell me, Paul, when you rode in the Tour de France and the crowd cheers like this, does it annoy you, make you feel good, or what?
Oh, it makes you feel good, obviously. You know, this is the biggest and the best. But here, when you think about basketball, or when you think about baseball or American football, the crowd is a long, long way away from the competitors.
Yeah.
Here, you're going through a tunnel of noise. It really is a very special feeling. Sometimes gives you goosebumps.
And we're coming up to the top of the line where the clock will start for the gap. Dave Zabriskie of the United States, not too far past the American flag on the left as he came up. Goes over the top. He gets the only point available. Small cash prize as well. And now it's eyes down for the finish. And the gap is only 1.5 minutes. We've got the clock running on the top.
Well, they lost a minute over the kilometre 80 to kilometre 70 to go, and I think it's going to be a little bit higher than that over this next 10 kilometres. That's all because of the pressure which is being applied in the main field. Andre Greipel, by the way, is going to try and win himself 3 stages in a row, and that's a feat that hasn't been done by a sprinter since 1999, when the famous Mario Cipollini did it. He won stages 4, 5 and 6. But then he actually went on to win number 7 as well.
And that's not going to happen for Andre tomorrow because it's too hilly. But nonetheless, it's an incredible situation. Really, Cipollini's the sprinter, and so is Greipel. There's no sprinter won 3 straight stages before, apart from Cipollini either.
In fact, when Cipollini won the first of those 4 stages, it was the fastest road stage of the Tour de France at the time, at an average speed of 50.3 kilometres an hour, which is almost 32 miles an hour. And that was into the city of Blois before heading across to winning in Maubeuge and then Thionville. And Maubeuge and Thionville are not very far away from where we are here.
They aren't actually. They're on the signposts as we came to the finish this morning in Metz. Rider just sitting off the back is Martin Vainants, the Belgian rider in the orange there from Rabobank. Just making sure he's in position as they go over the top. This is the descent now as the 4 leaders start to plunge away. There's no long descents here, like there's no long climbs. And thankfully the roads have dried out from the rain that came earlier. Sun is still shining here today. Here come the peloton, led by Sebastian Langeveld of Orica. Francis de Greff is the rider behind. He's riding in defence of... what's happened here? Well, there was a bit of a shunt there on our cameras. We have no control. They swung away. Let's see what's going on.
Well, there's a bunch of guys have crashed in the middle of the road, and this is one reason why you do not ride at the back of the peloton. You get delayed like this. These guys are not panicking at all, just taking on board a couple of drinks.
Well, Luis Leon Sanchez 155 thought, I'll just take a drink. I'm not too sure what happened there at all.
Well, there's a crash in the middle there somewhere, and they're getting themselves sorted out, and they're just trying to find a way round the crash.
Well, those simply should not happen, should they, those crashes, because the road is actually barriered here, so the riders can't blame the photographers.
Jose Ivan Gutierrez.
Yeah.
He's at the back. He's waiting for the team management to come up, and he's
Can't believe it.
Well, he's not happy, Phil, because he was in a crash after 35 kilometers of the race covered, and the mechanics are taking a long time to get up there. There's a lot of Lotto Belisol riders over to the right-hand side, so I'm just having a quick look to see number 114. There is Andre Greipel.
Greipel is stopped. He is in pain. He's still adjusting his bike. He's got the bandage on his elbow. You could probably see him there. Boak Mollema is high up overall too. He's involved here. That's amazing. Now, it must have been just a matter of a lot of riders on a narrow road, and they've all touched wheels, a couple of pedals in spokes or something like that.
It could be big for Bouk Mollema as well, the Rabobank rider, because he's 11th overall at the start of the day. I don't think they should have very much of a problem getting themselves back into the main field, but that can happen because the road narrows a fraction. All you need is for one guy to make a little bit of a wave in the main field. Let's see if we can see something better from the top here.
Well, it's right there, look, right in the middle, just as they come over the top. It has to be a touch of riders. It couldn't be anything else. The road was barriered, and they've got a bit of tangled machinery there. Now, the peloton here is sorting themselves out. Francis de Greef has gone to the front, and this is Lotto's teammate. So now they're going to have to... He'll get the message to try and slow it down, I think.
Well, there is Fabian Cancellara in the yellow. He wasn't involved in any of that contretemps at all. He's ridden a perfect race since we left Liège, and he dominated the opening day prologue. I think he's enjoyed every day in yellow so far. The time gap, because of that little accident, in fact, the gap has pushed itself up a fraction now, and it's starting to tickle the 2-minute mark again.
So I suspect now Lotto with Francis de Greef has got to the front there. They won't push on. They look as though they're going fast because they're going downhill. They won't push on while they know riders have been stopped by the accident. Those riders will be sorted out. They're probably all on the bikes just at the moment, and they will start to chase back. There's a big gap there. No race referees' cars behind the bunch. That indicates they're behind the chase groups.
Well, at this stage of the race, I would expect to nearly all of those riders, unless somebody is injured, to get themselves back into the peloton. Lotto Belisol are not going to do a hard tempo on the front, because he will know through his race radio that his own teammate, and that is Andre Greipel, is caught out behind. Stuart O'Grady taking on board drinks here, keeping himself topped up with liquids and fluids, as we get a chance to see the faces of these guys now. We'll be looking at different Radio Shack Nissan riders tomorrow. That was Haimar Zubeldia. There's Bradley Wiggins talking to Bernie Eisel. Eisel, the rider there with the elasticated bandage around his elbow from that crash just 2 days ago.
Yeah, and a badge on his eye there indicating 5 stitches he had, also in the same accident there. These are the 4 riders here. They're getting on with the job in hand. They've held on now to almost 2 minutes because of the delay of the crash, so it may be a little respite for them while they sort themselves out behind, but they will sort themselves out, and then they'll get back on with the chase. Long straight roads, the worst possible roads now for this breakaway. 3/4 of a minute ahead. They will be seen for miles.
They will. 48 seconds on a long road like this corresponds to around about 750 yards. So they have got them in their sights, but I don't think they'll try and play the tricky game they played yesterday and wait till the last minute. They want to try and pull them out, and I think we've seen the great organisation starting to come for Orica Green Edge. We've seen Bradley Wiggins moving to the front end of the main field with his team lead-out man Christian Knies. I wonder if today they will get themselves organised, Team Sky, to lead out Mark Cavendish.
We are racing now towards the 25 kilometres to go banner, and the gap 47 seconds at the moment. As they go under it, they will be in full view of the chase behind. And there's a crash. We are hearing on the race radio there's a crash, and there it is. Riders again, Paul, it's happened again.
Well, this is unbelievable. There's so many risks. There's a rider here from Vacon Soleil at the back of the pack. He needs a back wheel. He's waiting for his mechanic to come up alongside him there. And I tell you,
now,
this was halfway down the main field. There's still some riders on the floor. There is the South African
Robbie
national
Hunter's
champion,
there
Robbie
again.
Hunter was there. But big contenders, Cadel Evans is safe. Bradley Wiggins is safe. But you can see by the number of riders there, Phil, that was at the back end of the main field.
Well, we'll get to our cameras down there as soon as we can. Riders off the back are coming back in. Riders are moving away from the field. The peloton, remember, has not stopped. That has gone on. This has happened towards the tail of the pack.
Well, I think that was
Edvard
Edvald
Bosenhagen, I
down
think,
to the
is
back.
there, Paul.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys gone down very hard in there. This is mayhem.
There's a lot of riders here who are very stunned from this crash as well. as they're all looking to sort the bikes out. The doctors are trying to get through as into the ditches.
Well, there's number 67, I think I spotted
Johan
down
van
there.
Summeren down there.
David Miller is in there as well, number 66 for Great Britain, and Garmin Sharp. There's a lot of guys got caught out.
Yeah, and more bad luck for Garmin, and ironically, Tyler Farrell will have seen this as he just came on to Van Summeren is sitting on the road as well. There's 4 Garmin Sharp riders there, and one is Tyler Farrell. You can see Tyler with the bandage on his right arm there. He stopped because he was off the back at the time of the crash.
Frank
Slack is standing here losing time, big time at the moment. Remember, we're a long way out from the finish. Time doesn't stop here.
Francis de Greeven is in there as well for 113. He was already involved in the crash at the top of the climb. Frank Schleck should not have been that far down in a move like this, but these guys, I don't think, Phil, will ever see the main field again. You could see guys like Frank Schleck losing between 4 and 5 minutes on a stage like this.
Well, there is no way now that Frank Schleck can win the Tour de France as he pedals off. This is absolutely carnage at the moment. Half the peloton seems to have been stopped here. Frank Schleck is the rider who can't find a bike. He's shrugging his shoulders. There's a rider there from Vacansoleil in pain as well.
I think this is a good reason, Phil, why Team Sky need to ride to the front and look after Mark Cavendish for the sprints like this, because it's the safest place to be. There was a massive big crash halfway down the main field, taking out probably about 20 or 30 riders. This is the remnants of the guys who have survived, trying to get themselves back up.
Well, David Miller was involved in the crash. There were quite a number of the Garmin Sharp team. Boysenhagen was there on the Team Sky riders, but I'm delighted to say that we could not see Mark Cavendish involved in that crash. They were luckily right at the front. There's the scene on the road there as they now start to treat riders. And I think on this occasion there will be some riders not going on to the finish today.
Well, that was a very nasty, hard crash at about halfway down the main field. Bradley Wiggins was at the front end of the main field when this happened, so he was able to avoid all of the accidents. So too Cadel Evans, the Australian, surrounded by his teammates. Those two riders, since the start of this Tour, Phil, have ridden in the first 15 to 25 positions to try and avoid any possibility of an accident. Well, there's a lot of guys gone down there. The guy sitting in the road there was Johan van Summeren, the big tall rider from Garmin Sharp. But Orica Green Edge here now realise it's their responsibility to keep the pace. There's not many men left in this main field. There will not be, and their number. Oh, Heyerdahl has gone down.
Well, rider Heyerdahl is now moving away from the crash scene, and that is a really sad sight, especially for Canada, because he was the first Canadian man to win at this year's Tour of Italy. He's gone down heavy, and he can't win the Tour de France now. He's losing huge time.
Put this into perspective, Phil. This is not the 3 kilometre rule here this afternoon. We're still looking at 20 kilometres to go to the finish. That accident happened at about 25 kilometres to go. Let's not forget the race still continues here. We're still looking at a 4-man leading group with a 34-second advantage over the main fielder. Malcarne leads with Zabriskie, Zingel and Kroon, but they're only half a minute now ahead of the peloton.
But it is, of course, the team from Orica Garmin, who are Orica Green Edge. The crash was a huge crash. It happened at around 25 kilometres to go. A lot of riders falling down, the spectators being knocked down as well. We'll get a full list as we know. Robbie Hunter again, the South African chap I know, was in there. Boysenhagen was in there. Johan van Summeren, David Miller. And I think you've got Tom Danielson is also left behind. Another crash there for him, which is really very, very sad, along with Johan van Summeren. The race goes on. These 4 riders have been granted something of a reprieve, Paul, with a half-minute advantage over what is left of the peloton. Because the peloton is still very much incomplete, and I don't think they've got too many following cars. It's Simon Gerrans now who is driving on for the Orica Green Edge team. The boys in red are the team of Cadel Evans. He's protected, and one has to say too, the Sky team have ridden to the front and avoided that fall.
That's the way to keep out of danger in the Tour de France. You have to ride together, keep your teammates rallied alongside you. It's exactly what Cadel Evans has been doing. That's exactly what Bradley Wiggins has been doing. And I tell you one thing, we are getting confirmation that also Alessandro Patacchi, the sprinter, and Michael Scarponi were in that crash too.
20 kilometres to go now. The 4 leaders are still dangling in front, but that is a sad sight. On the right-hand side of the road there, that is Tommy Danielson, and that is a real shame. He's been knocked around this week with a couple of falls. He separated his shoulder a few days ago, and I'm afraid to say I don't think he'll continue now. He's too stunned. There's many minutes gone by since the accident. And remember too that Frank Schleck is up and riding along with Ryder Hesjedal. In fact, here is Frank Schleck. Always get a problem with your saddle at this stage of a situation, but nonetheless I think Frank Schleck also can't expect to regain this sort of time. Well, this is really sad because again it's a pilot error in the middle of the peloton. It's happened just on the 25 kilometres to go, just over 15 miles to go, and on this occasion of course the 3 kilometre out rule does not apply, so time is of the essence. So as Frank Schleck tries to sort matters out, there's individual riders in front. If they can get together, they can work to save a little bit of time, but these boys are flying now, and they are being driven on towards the finish by riders from the Argus Shimano squad. Orica Green Edge, the benefits of the American BMC team. They've steered Cadel Evans again out of a bad situation. He was nowhere near the problem. Same has to be said for the Sky team. They've done it for Bradley Wiggins. That's a very small peloton now as they speed towards the finish, and very shortly they will sweep up. It's a question of assessing just which sprinters are left here now to win the day. It could be the opportunity for a different type of winner today, as they pile on the pressure now. They can't wait for fallen riders because they've got to get on approaching the finish. They're too near the finishing line in Metz. These are the 4 leaders being driven just now by Europe Cars' David Malakane. I suppose that they will have been told by their team management with their race radios what has happened behind, and they might take a little bit of a strength from that, but 16 seconds isn't going to stop this bunch catching up now. They are settling down. The adrenaline will be coursing through the veins after that massive crash. It did look as though we've left 1 or 2 riders with far more serious injuries than we've had all week. Still got the champion of Belarus, I can see on the left of the road here. He rides for Team Katusha. That is Hutrovich. As they continue now, these 4 riders looking over the shoulder. They know the catch surely is coming now, and they see because of the chaos left behind, there's no official cars here, just motorbikes. There's no official cars behind the main field either, as they continue to be driven on here by the Argus squad. So we're seeing, I'm hearing that the first rider to abandon the race is Wouter Poels from Vakon Soleil, and that's a shame because he's a very strong bike rider from Holland. He's the first rider to officially leave the Tour as a result of that crash. Now I've searched this peloton, and I have to say I do not see the World Champions jersey of Mark Cavendish, and we never saw him back at the finish either, so we'll have to locate him as best we can when we can. But right now these boys are sweeping along now, leaving behind a number of riders, sprinters trying to reorganize themselves, but it's the old story, isn't it? The Tour de France in the last kilometers of the day, even earlier this time, the crashes are telling the story of this opening week of the Tour de France. Le Danu made it, he's number 144. Robbie Hunter right in the middle of our picture, down in the crashes again. Frank Schleck losing time, and probably the Tour de France today. In the last 25 kilometres, a massive pile-up. Frank Schleck currently riding over 2.5 minutes behind the peloton. The peloton has not regrouped at all. This is the Orica Green Edge team. We're trying to set up Matthew Goss for the victory. We're still trying to locate the whereabouts of Mark Cavendish, but we haven't spotted him yet. And Goss is producing now possibly the favourite tag for the victory. This is Frank Schleck. Last reported gap was around 2 minutes and 35 seconds for him, as Schleck now tries to regain some of the lost time. 15 kilometres to go for Frank Schleck. He's got a lot of work to do now. 2:25 behind. He is in the 3rd group on the road, Paul.
Well, also in this group, Jani Brakovic, another pre-Tour de France favourite to try and finish on the podium down towards the end of this race. They've got their big race in there, Borut Bodzik.
Well, we're hearing that Tom Danielson of the United States has just abandoned the Tour de France after that crash at the crash scene, 25 kilometres out. He's the second rider to go from that crash into the Sagwagon.
We'll talk about the carnage on the race from Epernay to Metz here this afternoon. I don't think anybody expected such a massive pile-up all the way from the finish, but it just goes to accentuate the fact that you have to be attentive every day around any corner on any road in France if you want to win this bike race overall. Another man who didn't get involved in that crash just over there on the left-hand side was the man who lies in third place, Sylvain Chavanel, the French champion.
Chavanel just named for the Olympic Games road race and time trial in London, celebrating that. He's very pleased to be selected. He's the rider in the light blue colours, just slipping away on the left of our picture there. 11 seconds. Paul, how are they holding off this group who are going as fast as they can go now?
Well, they are holding on by 10 seconds or so, but I have a feeling now that the Orica Green Edge boys, now I wonder if the confusion here, this group is a group that is actually just catching and amalgamating, but they're still a fair way off the back. Yeah. They're 2 minutes and 20 seconds from the main field here back to the group of Frank Schleck.
Yes, that was Frank Schleck just joining on to a bigger group of cyclists, but they're still running over 2 minutes behind the main peloton right now.
Well, on a day that has seen an awful lot of bad luck for Team Lotto Belisol, I wonder if it will be a good day for the Kiwis, because I just noticed Greg Henderson is in this group and he won't have to look after Andre Greipel on a day like today, and Henderson in a situation like this can be a very fast sprinter.
He may have his moment here today. 2 minutes is the official gap now to Frank Schleck's group, to the leaders, to the peloton rather, and add on a couple of seconds to these four riders who are going as best they can. But as we pull back here come the peloton. They're swelling a little bit all of the time. Just trying to scan there, Paul. I do not see the rainbow stripes there.
I do not, but I do see the green jersey of Peter Sagan over on the left-hand side. So he managed to use his usual bike handling skills to get himself around all of the danger there and stay in contact.
Well, Peter Sagan is in there as they continue on their way. The second group is now getting quite large. Two groups on the road, really.
Well, in that group as well, Alejandro Valverde, so he's missed out here this afternoon. So there's a lot of big names actually missed out because of that accident halfway down the main field.
Yes, I just see Valverde here. That's why his teammate is working so hard to try and close this gap down. That's going to help Frank Schleck as well, of course, because he can do with closing this gap down. 2 minutes is not an absolute write-off disaster in the Tour de France, but it is when you compare yourself to the riders who will win the Tour, because 2 minutes to people like Wiggins and Cadel Evans can be a chasm.
Well, there's another good sprinter in here. He's normally the lead-out man for Alessandro Petacchi, and that, of course, is the German rider Danilo Hondo. So we could be talking here on some very strange sprinting names when it comes down to the finishing line.
Well, take your hat off to these four boys now. Carsten Kroon, his face a picture of pain. They're still trying to be defiant and hold off the peloton. It is a massive peloton. BMC in the red jerseys there. The lilac colour, the mauve jerseys rather, that's the colour of Alessandro Petacchi. It's taking a very interesting form now, and watching everything is the green jersey of Peter Sagan.
Well, this is the chaos that has been caused by their crash. 2 minutes still back to the group of Frank Schleck. And it's about 10 kilometres to go to the finish.
Well, there is no Cavendish in the lead group. We are at 10 kilometres to go. We have two large pelotons in pursuit of one another, and 14 seconds now behind the four leaders. Everybody is at the limit of their ability right now because they're taking advantage of the fall.
Well, there's only one team really prepared to do the pacemaking. That's because they've got one of the fastest sprinters in this group, and Orica Green Edge really have to do something very special here. They're going to have to dig very, very deep into their suitcase of courage to pull this one back. It's now Michael Albacini. The group in the second row there in the red and black jerseys, BMC Racing, they have no interest at all in catching this breakaway group, because for them, they're only riding near the front end of the pack to protect the position and look after the safety of Cadel Evans.
Absolutely, and to do that, they've got to ride as fast as they can now, because these boys at the back would like to move up a little bit. Dave Zabriskie here, 7 times the time trial champion of the USA in the blue, but still the work are being done by David Malacane as he drives on here. He's never won a major stage of a Tour, but he's been close. He was second once in a stage of the Tour of Spain.
That is not a very big group. I make it around about 60 riders strong, and still it's now left to Orica Greenedge. This is the Australian national champion, Simon Gerrans, the winner in the early part of this year of the Santos Tour Down Under, and then after that he went on to win the most famous of all the one-day classics, Milano-San Remo.
As we look at the peloton now, you can just see the green jersey of Peter Sagan. He's just passed through our pictures. We swing back to the front. Orica Greenedge now see this as their chance to deliver Matt Goss to the line. They put the team at the front. They were in the right place. They didn't lose men in the crash, and they're now using those men up here.
Well, that looks to me as if they got the full complement of the team in this group here, but that's because they were starting the pacemaking to try and pull back this leading group, but it's up to them now. It's all up to them, the responsibility of pulling back the four leaders. But it looks as if they're starting to lose their grip, because that gap has gone up to 16, 17 seconds. It really is hovering.
When we look at those four leaders, they don't appear to be going as fast as the peloton, but they are going even quicker at the moment. The crash has caused a major disruption in the whole tempo. Here are the four leaders. You're going to see the leaders behind come over the brow of that hill. There they are, and it is still timed at 16 seconds.
Well, a quarter of a minute at this speed is 250 metres or 250 yards, if you like. It's awful when you're in a situation like this and you're chasing. I have got confirmation that Mark Cavendish is in this group with Alejandro Valverde, although I haven't seen him, but Race Radio is saying that he is in this group with his teammates. This is the third group on the road. The leading group is four riders. The yellow jersey group is the next group, and then this is the next group, third group on the road with Valverde.
There is Valverde. There he is, looking straight at the camera now in that lime green helmet. Now I haven't seen this. Boysenhagen is here. Mark Cavendish I haven't seen at the moment. He could be dodging in and out at the back.
I think he's 2 or 3 positions behind his teammate Edvald Bosenhagen. They are inside of 1 minute 58. They're doing an incredible chase, but why they're riding like this is to limit their losses. For riders like Alejandro Valverde and Frank Schleck, they're not going to come back up to that leading group at all this afternoon, but they have to keep riding hard to stay in the race.
Ondrej Grivko, the champion of Ukraine, is pushing on the front of that group, and Frank Schleck will thank him for that, because they're hopefully, and the time is saying, they're nudging out the seconds. They are coming down. They're inside 2 minutes behind the leaders, so they're closer. But as we're looking here at four riders in the lead now, fighting for their lives, and what a job they are doing. They are dangling like a carrot in front of a donkey, and they are holding the peloton off.
Well, they are, but it's 250 metres. Now's the time to bring out the big artillery if you're called Orica Greenedge, and the big artillery, I would have to think, has got to be Brett Lancaster. He's a big powerhouse of a man. Maybe they're keeping him down to the last few moments. Look at the face on Simon Gerrans here as he digs deep and looks and says to Stewie O'Grady, come on, Stewie, you know how this works. Come forward and do the next pacemaking.
He comes from the mountains, the high country of Mansfield, Victoria. He is riding the flat road. A nasty switch across the Tour de France. Everybody is on the limits.
You know, I have a funny feeling that Lotto Belisol might have changed their minds here this afternoon, because I'm looking at that long line of riders. They've still got 6 riders in this leading group.
Another man goes. He was left at the crash scene, and that's Mikel Astolosa has abandoned the Tour de France. He was alongside Tom Danielson when they crashed.
Well, it's still Orica Greenedge have got the control. They're still looking at 15 seconds, a quarter of a minute, 5 kilometres to go, 3 miles of racing, 7.5 minutes of effort.
Under 5 kilometres to go for the peloton. It's still 14 seconds as they go under the last 3 miles of racing. The Schleck group is going to lose about 1.5 minutes, I suspect. And now it is the Lamprey team giving the Orica Greenedge a little shift, because they're thinking of Pataki.
Well, Alessandro Pataki moves very smartly up into second position there behind his own teammate Danilo Hondo. So now it's time for Orica Greenedge to take a back seat and allow somebody else to give them some help. But I can see it looks very much to me, Phil, even though we're looking from altitude, as if at the back of that long line of Lotto Belisol, it looks like Ondrej Greipel.
It looks like him, but surely the adrenaline must be coursing through his veins today if there's got any blood left, because he's lost a fair bit out of his elbows and his knees today. But take a look to the right. Greipel has got in behind the man who's led him to 2 victories this week, Greg Henderson. They're lining it up.
Well, you know what? You may well be a sprinter, you may well be injured, but when you smell the victory, the possibility of a victory, forget about the pain, forget about the anguish. You can put it all away until tomorrow, and then that's what I think Andre Greipel is going to do here this afternoon. And in front of him, Greg Henderson really believes that his man, he can do it.
Big Dave Zabriskie here from Los Angeles is driving this group away. They still can't nail him back. The gap is now down to 8 seconds, and it's taken Greipel's Lotto team to chip away, and the chase group is at 1:57, 1:59 at the moment.
Well, it's going to be 2 minutes at the finish line, I would expect there, Phil, but the race is on here. This is what it's all about this afternoon, and now we're going to see. I think they will get pulled in, but it's going to be just like yesterday, right down to the very last minute, and the sprinters are going to have to say thank you very much to Team BMC Racing, because it's in fact Marcus Berghardt and Cadel Evans who are in first and second position.
The winner of the Tour de France last year getting himself mixed up in a sprint to the line, and his reason is one of safety, not one of victory. He's got Adam Hansen, a fellow Australian, sat right behind him, but he's on the team of Andre Greipel. As they continue Zabriskie has gone from the front of that group with his time trial prowess. If there's any man can hold off the boys in a time trial, it's Dave Zabriskie.
There's only very few professional bike riders who can do something like this. The 3 riders from the 4 have been caught. That leaves a situation with 1 man left in front. Dave Zabriskie from Los Angeles, California, has come out of the pack, and he's throwing down the gauntlet to these guys to say, if you think you are fast, well, I'm pretty fast myself, you come and get me.
Well, this is mano a mano now, because Zabriskie, 7 times the American time trial champion. The man leading that pack is the former Australian time trial champion, and that is Adam Hansen. He's looking over to see, making sure all the time to make sure that Greipel is in position.
It's a tough thing to do. Zabriskie looks back to try and judge whether or not he's got any energy left in the gas tank this afternoon. He's possibly the guy who can do it, but when you see the organisation coming, you've got Liquigas coming, you've got Lotto Belisol coming, I doubt if he'll be able to hang on this final 1.5 kilometres or 1 mile of racing.
Well, this is a tricky bend coming up. Zabriskie will not surrender. He's made that plainly obvious. He is going to race them to the line as best he can, and he still has a slight advantage, and you never know. I don't wish anything on the riders, but these last 2 kilometres have been very hazardous these past few days.
One by one, the lead-out men are starting to pull off the front end of the peloton. Zabriskie takes brisk going around that corner, but they're onto his wheel now. It's all over for the American. It's Orica Greenedge in control of the front, and just behind them, it's Lotto Belisol.
1 mile to go. Zabriskie has been wiped out. Now it's down to the sprinters again. And if you look at the bottom of our picture, the green jersey that always followed Mark Cavendish, Peter Sagan, is now following Andre Greipel. Not a bad choice.
Very good choice of wheel to follow inside of 1,000 metres to go. This is the big lead-out train. Once again, we saw it successful already in the Tour de France. A bumping of shoulders there as Alessandro Petacchi tries to move up. 1, 2, 3, 4 riders from Lotto Belisol, but behind them, Orica Greenedge are now starting to line themselves up.
Well, I think that was Kenny Van Hummel went shoulder to shoulder with Alessandro Petacchi, but the boys of Greipel's team have started to open up the sprint for the line. It is a perfect lead out with all this firepower on the front. Can it be spoilt here? Andre Greipel is waiting till the last possible moment to be launched into the finishing line, but he's got to watch out. Oh, and the slip of gears by Matt Goss has cost him dearly. Something happened, maybe a broken chain, but they're running up towards the line now. This is Gossi, sorry, this is Matt Goss forcing the issue, and look at the run by Sagan as Sagan takes on Henderson. No, Greipel to the line. Peter Sagan is showing when the going gets rough, this man wins.
What an amazing bike rider this man is, Peter Sagan. He stopped Andre Greipel getting himself win number 3. Poor old Kenny Van Hummel there, Phil. He snapped his chain inside of the last 300 metres. I was looking there to see whether or not Matty Goss was going to come up through the middle there, but no, he just did not have the top-end power this afternoon. The man who has got it is the man in the green jersey, and he will extend his lead in that green jersey points classification. But what would have happened if Andre Greipel hadn't crashed twice today? Yes, you are a gorilla, aren't you, Mr. Peter Sagan, this afternoon?
An excellent win. What power. He had really surged here. Greipel had the clean shot. Maybe the injuries costing that 1 or 2% in the effort to the line. But Peter Sagan suddenly came clear by a good length and a half to take his 3rd victory of the Tour de France. and this is only day 7.
And I'll tell you what, Phil, he didn't really have very much time to think about his victory salute on this occasion, because it was all right the way down to the wire.
The clock has started, Paul. We are hearing on radio 1 kilometre to go for Frank Schleck. So he's going to lose about a minute and a half today.
Another pre-race favourite, Reim Tarameh, just over there on the left-hand side. He will lose a big chunk of time here this afternoon. Frank Schleck, I would guess, is going to lose quite possibly close to 2.5 minutes on the day and leave a little bit of skin out on the open road.
Well, incredible run for the line. It was well worked out. Frank Schleck is on his way in now in the group. They'll get the same time. The clock is indicating over a minute and a half at the moment. That's a real shame for Frank. His bike was a long time coming to him. He was involved in the crash. As they all come over, these are the crash victims. They could not recover from the fall.
That's Scarponi in second position in the pink jersey. Behind him in the black shoulders, that is Frank Schleck. And the way he's holding his handlebars there, Phil, I don't think he's a very comfortable bike rider. And maybe he's got a
I think actually he's got a little plaster on his lips there, so I think he really hit his face somewhere. Mark Renshaw, Mark Cavendish, I don't see him here. There in the centre is the white jersey of Edvald Boasson-Hagen, but Cavendish is not in that group, so there's still more riders to come here.
Well, you've got to question what happened to him there. That maybe he and Boasson-Hagen were both sitting at the back end of the main field and got involved in that little crash at around about 25 kilometres to go, as we get a confirmation here of the result.
Yeah, Sagan gets the win, of course, ahead of Greipel and Goss. Van Hummel, who bumped shoulders with Pataki, got up there for 4th place. Greg Henderson, the lead-out man, again crossing the line himself in 6th place. It is in the podium positions, but he hasn't yet won the race. Sagan, the winner. Further down, it is Henderson. Pataki in 7th. The top 10 completed by Brett Lancaster. Another great ride by the South African Daryl Impey. Oh, dear me. Look at this now. This is Hessing coming in, and now we can see the front of him, Paul. Look at his jersey cut to pieces, and he's lost his Tour de France today, because look at the clock.
More than likely, look at the clock is still ticking as he drags himself up to the finishing line here. He is cut left, right and centre, and even down his back as well. He will have to get put together tonight by the doctors to come out tomorrow and go up into the mountains for the first time. He's still waiting for the clock to stop, and that line will not come for Robert Hessing, but
Bang.
it does at 3 minutes 30 seconds.
Oh, what a shame. But you know, Hessing is always involved in the crashes in the early days of the Tour. He's always promised so much, and it's always left that promise behind so early on. If we look around the city of Metz now, the referees are going to have a busy time tonight sorting out the result, but they won't have a problem with who was in the last 3 kilometres and who should get the same time, because that accident was a real-time accident, 25 kilometres out. The win, though, 3 wins for Peter Sagan, and he now can look forward to the next 2 weeks of the Tour de France. No real pressure. He increases his lead in the green jersey. Let's go back to the finish line. These are live pictures, 5.5 minutes since Mark Cavendish, since the leader crossed the line. There's Cavendish, yellow helmet on the left, coming in. Whether he fell, I'm not sure, but he was certainly delayed by the crash. And these boys coming in, having been beaten today, including Jaroslav Popovic. Also, Johnny Hoogeland is here as well. That was the rider who went spectacularly into the barbed wire fence a year ago. Andrei Grivko is here, the champion of Ukraine. That's him waving his arms and, in the light blue jersey. Tommy Voigtla's coming in, but he's not going to worry. He's lost over 8 minutes already, and they've lost another 6. Different situation to all week when we've all been checking out where the sprinters are.
Well, it's a similar kind of tactic. Move your man to the front. On the right-hand side, you can see the black and white jerseys. That is Team Radio Shaq Nissen. I presume they will be working for Andreas Kloden, the German, this afternoon. And, of course, they'll be working for Frank Schleck, who was delayed by that accident yesterday. But for everybody here, it's all about the final climb of the day. It's there where you can gain time, but other riders will find themselves losing time.
Well, that rider we just saw there dropping off with Jimmy Ongelvon, it's rather sadly. He's a good rider. He's had 3 wins this year. He's a good time trialist too. Won the opener in the Tour of Luxembourg time trial. He also won the overall in the 4 days of Dunkirk. So he must be injured as well. There are the 7 escapees. They're 150 now. The tempo is picking up, and it's Garmin Sharp has moved back up to the front. 20 kilometers to go as they go under the banner. It was 1:48 on our clock. See what it is when the peloton get there now, because these roads are narrow, twisty, undulating until we hit the big climb itself.
Well, one wonders if the American team Garmin Sharp can have some good luck on today's stage, because they lost 2 riders yesterday because of some dramatic crashes. The Canadian rider, Ryder Hezerdal, and the South African national champion, Robbie Hunter. Today they're trying to put things to rights. This is Christian Vande Velde from Illinois on the front, and he's trying to pace his man. In third position there is Dan Martin. He's a youngster on the squad. It's his first participation in the Tour de France, but he's a very good climber. He could create the surprise. As we start, we haven't even got to the start of the climb here, Phil. These are the undulations before the climb starts proper, but the damage is being done. Matty Goss, number 204, he's a sprinter. Normally, I've always found that sprinters are very allergic to the mountains.
Yes, indeed. But Dan Martin isn't allergic. He's only a youngster, just over 25 years old. Well, he'll be 26 next month. But he's having a good season. He was 6th in the Classic Flèche Wallonne. He was 5th in the other Classic, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Remember, this tour started in Liège at this time along. And as we've said before, he is the nephew of Stephen Roche, and his dad Neil, I should imagine back home in GB, is going to hope that very shortly son Dan will be breaking away from the pack.
This is Andre Greipel. He crashed yesterday, dislocated his shoulder, managed to finish the stage. Not only did he finish the stage, he almost won the stage and finished second. He was only beaten to the line by the young Slovakian Peter Sagan. He will try and recover on today's stage and just try and get himself to the finish, but it's been a hard day out for Andre Greipel.
He should make it for 20 kilometers. So the peloton have gone under that 20 kilometers banner now. Andre Greipel unhitched at the back. I don't think they'll come back now. They'll form little groups of riders behind. Shouldn't be a dangerous situation for the man who's won 2 stages so far. But is that the American team, Garmin Sharp, going to land us with the winner after a week of horrible results from crashes? When we come back, we will take the riders right to the finish at the top of La Planche des Belles Filles. To the last 10 miles of the day here, and they are closing in quite rapidly on those 7 leaders, and really the work is being done by the riders on Garmin Sharp, the American team who is trying to set up their top Irish cyclist Dan Martin to win the day for them. Well, as we peer through the church here of Saint-Pierre and Paul, you can see right down to the peloton. They are visibly going quicker now. We have left behind some of the wounded riders from the previous week's crashes. There's signs of stress in the breakaway, Paul. There's gaps between the wheels. They are scrambling to stay in front.
Well, they're putting the pressure on, Phil, with one reason, one thought in the back of their minds. We want to survive. We've broken away from the main peloton in the early part of the day, and now what we're trying to do is just hold on to those few seconds that we built up. They had a maximum lead of 5 minutes at one stage, and yes, these guys are looking quite urgent in their pedaling style as they make their way along the undulations to the start of the climb. But look at the face of these riders here. Garmin Sharp have done a phenomenal job. They've had so much bad luck, but over the last 10 minutes of the race, they have done almost 80% of the pacemaking, and that's because they want to set it up for their young climber, Dan Martin of Ireland.
15.6 kilometers to go, just over 9 miles, and of course they know that in the last few miles of the day, the last 3.5 miles of the day, it is going to be a tough finale. This is the first mountain test of the Tour de France. Up through the trees in the distance and right to the top of that tree line is the finishing line of today's stage of the Tour de France. You can see the speed of the peloton now, and the gap is down. We're inside 90 seconds now.
Well, Phil, we've been talking about this climb, La Planche des Belles Filles, of being a 6 kilometer climb, a 4-mile ascent. But in fact, it's a long drag up to the bottom of the climb, and it will be really starting to eat into the riders' strength, and they'll be starting to buckle a little bit. 1 or 2 riders have already buckled as we make our way to the start of this climb. These 7 riders at the lead have not so far, but when you see the shoulder of a rider bobbing like that, that's a sign that his body's under pressure.
15 kilometers to go for the 7 leaders now, as even these little hills are forcing them out of the saddle. They know the peloton will be reacting now. They know they're coming, and it looks as though we might have a little attack there by Fofanov off the front of those 7 leaders.
The lime green jersey on the front, that is the team Liquigas Cannondale, but there is, yes, that is Fofanov in the turquoise jersey of Team Astana. He wants to split this group up, because once you get to the end of a race like this and you've been in the breakaway for a long time, the riders sitting on the back end of the group, it feels, Phil, as if you're carrying an anchor at the back of the group, or you're in an air balloon and you're starting to throw out the sandbags.
So Fofanov, the Kazakh rider, has launched an attack here. Those who have still got strength have gone across to him. The one weak link, it seems, is Cyril Gauthier, the Frenchman on the Europe car team. He's the one that's unhitched. Now we've got 6 riders forming themselves together. And Luis Leon Sanchez, he can't really get out of the saddle because of his damaged wrist. He must be in quite a lot of pain. And Cyril Gauthier is going to come back.
He's scrambling to get onto the back end of this group of riders to make it 7 riders once again. But the surface of the road is also contributing to making this a very difficult run up to the bottom of the climb. It's a heavy, gravelly surface, and when you ride on that kind of surface, you really don't feel as if you can make the bike roll along comfortably. But Cyril Gauthier is rolling along his shoulders just to try and make himself part of that 7-man leading group. But look at the gap. The gap is now dramatically starting to come down, and we're seeing some casualties at the back end of the pack. On the left-hand side, champion of the world, and that is Mark Cavendish. There's been a little crash there on the left-hand side of the road. That's Johnny Hoogland, the famous rider from last year who crashed out, taken out by a press car overtaking the race.
As he was caught like a mailbag in the barbed wire fence. He's back in the Tour de France, though. Mark Cavendish, I think that's to be expected. He's a sprinter. He's going to just ride home and save his engine to help the team on the flatter roads. Meanwhile, at the front here now, it is the Garmin Sharp team who continue to drive this race, and it can only be for Dan Martin to have a go once we get to the slopes.
Well, the man doing that pacemaking for Garmin, in fact, was Christian Vande Velde. Christian Vande Velde was born in Lemont, Illinois, lives in Chicago, Illinois, but spends his summer months in Girona. He's a great Olympian too, Phil, because he participated in the Olympic Games way back in 1996 on the track in the team pursuit for the USA.
Well, as they make up that big effort from the Garmin Sharp team, they have a forgettable week behind them in the Tour de France, because they have lost 3 of their riders. As 3 riders have gone out, are their top man really for the overall, rider Hesjedal. Also another top man for their overall was Tom Danielson as well, who finished 8th in his first Tour de France last year. Hesjedal won the Tour of Italy this year, first Canadian ever. And Robbie Hunter, who was the champion of South Africa, all gone sadly from the team because of crashes.
And also struggling to stay in the Tour de France is their big sprinter Tyler Farrar, who went down very, very hard in 2 days ago. He's cut up and bandaged on every quarter of his body. It's now the Scot on the Garmin Sharp squad, David Miller, doing the pacemaking. They will ride like this. These men will sacrifice themselves for a teammate to try and put the teammate in an ideal position to take over the pacemaking later on, and the big attacks. I would think, Phil, once we get to the first foot of this climb, we will see the attack start immediately, and that is going to be in 6 kilometers time, or about 4 miles.
Well, the race has been going now for 4.5 hours today. Yet another long day in the saddle. It's 123 miles, 199 kilometers, and the pressure is now telling on the legs of Cyril Gauthier of France, because again they've accelerated on a rise. He can't go with them. There are 6 riders going to go clear this time. And still the race leader, Fabian Cancellara, happily ensconced in a dwindling peloton now, because the speed is sending riders off the back. And it's David Miller, the British rider from Garmin Sharp, who is on the front now to lift the pace. If this man gets on the front, he can ride a tremendous pace up front.
Yes, but what they are doing, they're trying to pull back this group, which has just lost one of its members, and that, of course, the Frenchman Cyril Gauthier. Sitting on the back in the orange jersey, that is Luis Leon Sanchez. Martin Velits is in the pale blue. These riders are still prepared to share the pacemaking. It might not look as if it is, Phil, but this is slightly uphill. The race profile doesn't really do this climb justice, because we talk about the 6 kilometer climb. Van der Velde done his job for the day. He's done the pacemaking for his teammate. Now all he has to do is try and get himself to the finish. It'll be a hard job after putting yourself into the red zone.
That's why you're a teammate. That's why it's a team that makes up the Tour de France. You do what you can, and then you get out of the way and hope that the man you've done it for can finish the day off. In this case, Dan Martin, second in blue here. Well, the pressure continues to apply, and it is now David Miller. Look at the carnage at the back now as David Miller lifts the ante. Rider after rider has been dropped. Mark Cavendish has already gone, and so too now Dave Zabriskie, showing the red number, which was given to him as the most aggressive rider on yesterday's stage.
Well, Zabriskie yesterday broke away within the first kilometre of the race, and he was only caught inside the final kilometre of the race. Now, on the left-hand side, you can notice the team cars. Those are the team support cars that were behind the breakaway. That's because the race referees believe that the race is about to come back together, and they try and make the gap between the breakaway group and the main field as clean and as sterile as possible.
Well, inside the minute, it's 45 seconds now. It's David Miller. Albacini's pushing on by himself. He is the climber in this group. He is nearest his home of Switzerland, and he is the weapon of Orica Greenedge, who are hoping they can land the stage win soon.
Well, we're now starting to see the little bit of tactics unfolding now, the psychological tactics of Team Sky, who are the team of Bradley Wiggins, who hopes to be the first British rider to win the Tour de France, organising the pacemaking. You can still see, though, in about 15th position, the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara. He is going to defend this as much as possible. Theory and practice would say that Fabian Cancellara cannot hold on to his lead in this race today, because here's a little crash in the back. This is Jurgen van den Broek.
Now this is serious. This is Jurgen van den Broek, the leader of the Lotto team and the Belgian climber. That's why a teammate is helping him out here and getting him back on the road. This is very, very unfortunate.
Well, it's the wrong time for that to happen. As I say, Phil, to win the Tour de France, you have to be attentive on every day. You never know around what corner Lady Luck can be waiting for you. Sometimes she'll smile on you, sometimes she's really mean.
Well, that is really sad. Van den Broek is riding high in the overall classification. He's only 28 seconds off the jersey of Cancellara. Realistically, he could have been a man going for yellow here. This is the first catch from the breakaway. This is Cyril Gauthier, who is now back in the field. It's Edvald Boysenhagen who has first man up to him, and he's on Team Sky.
Well, it's down to half a minute, the surviving six-man breakaway, Phil, and the main field, and that is around about 500 yards. This man is scrambling to come back into the Tour de France. He is a pre-race favourite, but all of a sudden, he's had a mechanical incident at the side of the road, and he's got to scramble his way back in. But you can't give up. You've got to fight back every mile, every kilometre.
10 kilometres to go now. These 6 survivors are still clear, but for how much longer? 31-second the gap. This is not all downhill to the finish, I'm afraid, today. This is the first big test in this year's Tour de France. We are going mountain climbing over the last 4 miles of the day, just on 6 kilometres to the summit. And it looks to me as though the speed has cracked already a lot of riders.
Well, it has. A lot of riders, Phil, have survived over the first week of this Tour de France, and our first taste of the mountains gives you an idea of how quickly the race can explode. Team Sky, as they have done on a number of occasions throughout this year's circuit, have come to the front to control the pacemaking. They are now looking very good indeed, but they will have to watch out for Cadel Evans, the defending champion squad, BMC Racing from the United States.
4 hours and nearly 40 minutes they've been in the saddle. These are the survivors of the breakaway, but for how long? At 35 seconds the gap. Team Sky quite clearly now have taken control of the head of the race, and that is for Bradley Wiggins. We're waiting now to see the red and black jerseys of the team of Cadel Evans come up alongside. Wiggins openly fears Cadel Evans. Cadel Evans openly respects Bradley Wiggins.
However, there's one Italian in there in a lime green jersey by the name of Vincenzo Nibali, and he has said, I don't feel any impression at all by Bradley Wiggins. I am concerned about Cadel Evans, though, and Vincenzo Nibali has not either done anything wrong at all in this race so far. 7th overall, only 18 seconds behind. We are looking at the first real showdown of the Tour de France this year, while one man is not really in for the count. He's got to get himself back to the main field. He's already more than half a minute behind the peloton of the yellow jersey.
And that is the Belgian Jurgen van den Broek here, 4th overall in the Tour de France 2 years ago. Talked about by the Belgians as a winner this time around. He's got himself a teammate to try and drag him back up, and that's the Queenslander Adam Hansen. So the race really has opened up now as the field continues to chase down those 6 remaining breakaways. The gap is 35 seconds now. The peloton are closing in, and then they'll be in for the kill. And this is another problem back here, because this is Alejandro Valverde, and he was fancied to win the stage at the mountain today. Another problem at the back. What an amazing Tour de France. As we're in the town of Planche-les-Mines now, this is the last town before we get to the finishing line. From now on in, the climb starts. It's a little bit narrow around the corner, Alejandro, and then you start going uphill. That's a most unfortunate time to puncture. He is strong, he's feeling good, he's never had his chance just yet, but we'll just see if he can get back. Team Sky using Edvard Boysenhagen. They've got all the men at the front now, and then it's the red jerseys of Cadel Evans. Let's get inside the team car of Cadel Evans and just see what Jean Lalonde is saying to Evans right now. Well, there's Jean Lalonde now, and Jim Ockowitz on the left.
Good job, guys, huh? 3K like this, and then we are the foot, huh? We stay on the plan, we stick on the plan.
Stick on the plan, that's what he said before. Wait a minute.
The first kilometer is a steep one, huh? The first K is a steep one, huh? Great job, Phil, huh?
The first kilometre or half mile is a steep one. Yes, he's absolutely right, we've seen it. And now we're going to see what happens when they get there. Well, the breakaway under absolute pressure. Christophe Ribelam, he's not going to give up. Not while they've got a few seconds advantage, but Paul, it's 20 seconds now. There's going to be a tornado blow up the valley. There's the split in the peloton now.
Well, the peloton have split, and this is what happened to the damage at the back. The man who's won himself 3 stages so far leads the points competition for the most consistent rider at the end of the flat stages. Peter Sagan, he's gone. There is a very small peloton, but over on the right-hand side in the red and black jersey, you can see Cadel Evans surrounded by his merry men once again. But it's Bradley Wiggins' team for the moment who are taking the advance in the psychological warfare.
Well, it's Edvard Boysenhagen, the 25-year-old Norwegian on Team Sky, who's had 6 wins this year, including the national title of his country, has done the damage thus far, and still behind there trying to get through is Jürgen van den Broek. But George Hincapie has got up to the front now, and this is what Cadel Evans' squad will want to see. There's a chase at the back and there's a ripper at the front. Jürgen van den Broek is trying to get back on before it all happens. Any minute now.
Any minute now there will be a turn to the right, and all of a sudden from a gradient of 4 or 5%, which is nice and comfortable little ride through a country lane, you will face a wall in front of you at 11%, and that is the start of the climb of the Planche des Belles Filles.
And they get onto those slopes with a scant lead, don't they? They've been up there over 5 minutes ahead. Now they're 9 seconds. Look at this crowd here. You're going to see these people all the way to the top now, and they've had to walk there. No cars allowed. They've been walking since 7 o'clock this morning. 6 kilometres to the summit. We are on the way up to the top.
Well, Jürgen van den Broek has got to the back end of the second group. He's got to scuttle his way through there, and once he sees the gap in front of him, he's got to keep going and try to get himself back into this bike race. I'll tell you one thing, for those 6 leaders, Phil, when they see this mountain rear up in front of them, they must have thought it was like a hammer in the face.
Well, there's only 5 of them left. I could only count theirs. They've started the climb now, and just over the shoulder, there they come, the advance party of the peloton. It is Advantage Team Sky on the climb at the moment.
Well, it's all about what can they do for Fabian Cancellara. How long can Fabian Cancellara, the overall leader, stay in contact with the main field here this afternoon? I don't think he'll be able to stay in contact for the rest of this race. This is Fofenhoff having difficulty with his gears, or maybe with his legs.
Both, I think. He can't find them. This is Albacini we're looking at the moment. He is the front of Chris Anker Sorensen, the last 2 survivors of the breakaway. They'll go for as long as they can. Look at the face behind of Christophe Ribelam, the Frenchman. The gradient is now just on 10% at this point. It gets steeper, but we do have the little bit of... The peloton is coming up. Cadel Evans is looking to the back of the black jersey, blue sky, Team Sky for them. They are cracking big time now.
Slipping off the back, champion of the world in the individual time trial. That was Tony Martin. His thoughts are further around the corner in the individual time trial on Monday around Besançon. It's Michael Rogers is the man sitting on the front for Team Sky of the main peloton in that yellow helmet. Not riding for himself, not riding for Australia. He's riding for Bradley Wiggins, who is sitting in about 3rd or 4th position. Wiggins, I am sure, will be challenged when we got to the top part of this climb by Cadel Evans, who's the man in the red and black jersey there, out of the saddle, just over to the right-hand side of the front end of the pack.
This is Chris Anker Sørensen, the sole survivor, and they're putting him back in his place. He won the King of the Mountains title in Spain in March in the Tour of Catalonia, but not on this climb now. And Robert Hessink is going number 151. He fell yesterday, he lost time, he's cracking under the pressure as well.
The winner of the Amgen Tour of California this year in the month of May in a very dramatic style, but that crash, that injury has not put him at his best for the stage up to the top of the La Planche des Belles Filles here this afternoon. But the big boys are coming out to play. 4 riders from Team Sky on the front. The 4th rider is Bradley Wiggins. No, the 2nd rider is Bradley Wiggins, just waiting. And this is the tactic that these guys have adopted all year, Phil, whether it's been in the Tour of the Algarve, whether it's been in Paris-Nice, whether it's been in a training camp in the islands of Tenerife in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They've ridden like this, in this formation.
Hey, what's this? This is Levi Leipheimer. He doesn't like these sort of climbs. He told us earlier he doesn't like these short climbs. He takes a while to warm up. He was worried about today, and he has lost contact. He is with the group of Robert Hessink, and also here is Tommy Voigtler, who finished 4th in the Tour de France. He's got a green jersey on there. It's Michael Rogers, the Australian from Canberra, setting the pace for Team Sky at the front.
This is a teammate of Cadel Evans, Philippe Gilbert. He was the most dominant rider on the circuit last year. This year can't quite get it together. 2 Australians in 1st and 2nd position. Michael Rogers, 3 times champion of the world in the individual time trial, followed by Richie Porte, the best young rider in the Tour of Italy a couple of years ago.
And Richie on the floor yesterday, but happily okay. Now Cancellara in yellow has been unhitched. He has already lost that leader's yellow jersey. He was 7 seconds in front of Bradley Wiggins at the start of this day.
Well, 7 seconds advantage he held from the prologue time trial all the way down here. But Phil, this man won't give up. He will limit his losses on this climb because he knows on Monday there's a very long individual time trial, and who knows whether or not he could turn the tables round again. We're looking, can I say, the easy part of the climb here, Phil, at 6.5% gradient, because this gives the riders a little bit of chance to recover a fraction at least before they get to the steep part down towards the end. Bradley Wiggins is now sitting in 3rd position, comfortably as you like, with his teammates in front of him.
Yes, and he's also being looked after by Chris Froome. There's an absence of the red and black jerseys there of Cadel Evans. Cadel has said for the moment he feels that Sky have the best team in the race. But he's relying very heavily on TJ Van Garderen, and there he is. Van Garderen shouldn't be unhitched here. That's a little bit of a surprise, Paul. The first day in the mountains does strange things.
It's always very strange, Phil, when you've ridden across the flatlands of the northern part of France using a huge gear, milling it over at speeds of 50, 55 kilometers an hour, then all of a sudden you've got a completely different pedaling style, and you throw a mountain in at the finish and your body doesn't really know how to react. This is the yellow jersey of Fabian Cancellara, read this race since Belgium. Now he's on the defensive. I think pretty much he knew he would lose out today.
Sylvain Chavanel also losing his high place overall at the moment because he's also been unhitched there. This is an amazing race right now because this is Ivan Basso we just saw. Back to the head of the race of 4 kilometers to go. Michael Rogers still breaking this field up and discharging good riders now out the back. Team Sky on this sort of performance is annihilating the field, and Franz Schleck has been unhitched again at the back of the race. There he is, number 11.
He's being helped there by the American rider Chris Horner, who's trying to pace him back into this race. He too is a rider delayed by the accident yesterday. A lot of people thought he might have tried to ride back into the Tour de France this afternoon. Is his body injured or is his mind?
Well, looking here now on the actual climb towards the summit, we are 3 3/4 kilometers from the summit now, about 2.5 miles to go. This is now a 10% gradient.
Michael Rogers, job done, has moved away from the front. He hands it over to another Australian on Team Sky, and that, of course, is Richie Porte. This is Sylvain Chavanel, started the same time as Bradley Wiggins in these overall standings this morning at 7 seconds to the yellow jersey. Sylvain Chavanel in the pale blue there is in contact with Fabian Cancellara, who's riding, for a man who's good at the flatlands, a very good defensive position.
I think in all fairness we expected this from this great rider from Switzerland, Fabian Cancellara. As we now go back up to see the Tasmanian rider Richie Porte do his job of pacemaking at the front. Maxime Montfort down there looking for where number 11 is. Frank Schleck.
Also disappearing, one of the pre-race favourites, a former Giro d'Italia winner, Michele Scarponi. This is becoming a very small group indeed. And now we thought that Team BMC Racing was the strongest team of the two of the big challengers. Well, it's turning out to be Team Sky, because they've still got Richie Porte, Chris Froome, and of course Bradley Wiggins there. Cadel Evans is pretty much on his own in this group.
And right on the back and just hanging on was the Olympic champion Samuel Sanchez here. Cadel Evans has got his hands full now. 3 Sky riders in front of him, and he sits in 4th place. 31 at the back of that line is the Olympic champion Samuel Sanchez. But Team Sky are trying to write Cadel's team out of the script, and they are piling the pressure on with Richie Porte.
Well, Richie...
So here's the Estonian Ryan Taramay, as this group now is down to about 8 or 9 men. It's looking now as though Bradley Wiggins will be the next leader of the Tour de France.
Well, what is amazing, Phil, Wiggins is the man in 2nd position. Just look at the suppleness of the way he's pedaling there. He's got a very low gear. He's keeping himself well inside of his maximum ability. He's been overtaken now by Chris Froome, who's moved up into 2nd place. Richie Porte has not even looked over his shoulder yet. He's the rider in 1st position for Team Sky. He's just making the tempo for as long as he can. But I have to warn these guys, Phil, they're at 2.3 kilometres to go. That's around about 1.5 miles of racing. When they get to the kilometre mark, it's going to really start to hurt.
7 riders setting the pace to the summit of the finishing line today. This is Frank Schleck trying to get back on terms. Tony Galopin, a Frenchman, is trying to help him out just a little bit, but slowly but surely they are being dragged away from the Maillot Jaune as well. There is a new leader on the horizon and right up the mountain. And believe me, when we swing round the last 250 metres, you'll be amazed by the wall they face.
It is an amazing climb. That's Sammy Sanchez, the outgoing Olympic champion, just in front there in the orange jersey, wearing number 31, the title that he garnered in Beijing 4 years ago. Now it's up to the man born in Kenya, in the continent of Africa, Chris Froome, to set the pace now. He's a strong climber. He's in this team to look after Bradley Wiggins over the final few climbs of any stage. They're inside of 2 kilometres to go.
This is why the 27-year-old was brought to the team. It's to help Wiggins. Now Porte has done his job. It's now up to Chris Froome, and then it's up to Wiggins himself to finish it all off. But look how they've destroyed the peloton of the Tour de France. Team Sky, one by one, has written most people out of the script.
Number 19 there is Jaime Zubeldia from Radio Shack Nissan. He's a very good Spanish climber, and I have a feeling here he may be sitting off the back because he's heard that Frank Schleck has recovered from his bad start to this climb, and he may well be waiting to pace the Luxembourger back up towards this group. Chris Froome just concentrating in 1st position.
But look at the face of Cadel Evans. They know the courage of Cadel Evans. Wiggins has spoken of the courage of Cadel Evans. He knows he's going to be very, very difficult. Ryan Taramay is going off the back at the moment. Denny Menchoff is cracking as well. Taramay is on the back. Menchoff has slipped off ever so silently. And Nibali is still there. It is now going to be Team Sky one-on-one. Do you know what? We could see the 2 race favourites leave this group shortly.
Well, in 2nd position, Bradley Wiggins has not showed any emotion at all thus far. Further back down the slope there, that is Sammy Sanchez. He's been caught and passed now by Tony Galopin, the rider in 1st position wearing number 13, and Frank Schleck. Frank Schleck is trying to keep himself in this bike race after a nasty start. Fabian Cancellara has been brave and courageous and flamboyant over the 1st week of the Tour, but he's not a mountain goat. He's a man for the flatlands. Froome just looks over. Nibali is the rider in the lime green jersey there in 4th position. He said he's not impressed by these men, but he's still in contact. He home-tuned his preparation for the Tour de France in the Amgen Tour of California in the month of May, and I think he's actually put in the right preparation, because there he is, nice and comfortably, 7th overall at the start of the day, looking for 18 seconds.
Leader of the Tour, unless Cadel surprises and goes for gold and opens up that gap.
The gap that Cadel Evans needs if he wants to get the yellow jersey at the end of the day ahead of Bradley Wiggins is 10 seconds. That's a hard thing to do on the slopes of a climb like this, but Evans is the kind of rider who has that punchy explosion. That kite over the road there, 1 kilometre to go, 1,000 yards left in this race, but Phil, what 1,000 excruciating yards they are going to turn out to be, because the average gradient here is 14%. But to me, that's a bit of a joke, because when you turn around the corner, at 350 meters to go. There's a wall in front of you at 20% gradient, which is difficult to walk up.
Well, about 600 meters from that corner as well. The 5 survivors of this riding now. Chris Froome, now in his dying moments, is lifting the pace until he can do no more. Wiggins is waiting on his rear wheel. Behind Wiggins is Cadel Evans. Behind Cadel Evans, the Italian favourite Nibali, and tacked onto the back, the Estonian rider Rein Taaramäe. We are heading towards the finish now as the stragglers are under the last kilometre. Evans makes the turn first, and that's a shrewd move.
Well, he wanted that. He now knows what this climb is going to be. 350 to go. It's at 250 meters to go that it really starts to get very, very grippy indeed. Now, Chris Froome in second position. They've got to stay in contact with Cadel Evans.
This is the move by Cadel Evans. Now, has he caught Wiggins? Wiggins has had to do this himself. He's afraid of the power of Cadel Evans on these steep slopes. Look at the face of Wiggins. Look at Chris Froome. Chris Froome is trying to spoil the party for Cadel Evans as Froome finds something special, as it's Chris Froome who's riding away for Sky as they come up the wall now. Evans has not lost hope. Nibali is struggling at the back, but Chris Froome, the Kenyan rider who started cycling in South Africa, drags himself away. This has to be seen as a huge surprise. Look at that gap.
This is unbelievable for Africa. This is unbelievable for Kenya. Chris Froome creating a bit of a surprise here this afternoon, gets the win, Phil.
Froome crosses the line, a tremendous show of strength, a wave of congratulations by the next leader of the Tour de France, Bradley Wiggins, in third place. What a battle of the favourites that was.
Well, this is the first battle, Phil, of what will be many battles. We've still got 2 weeks to go in the Tour de France. This is only the opening battle, and there's a lot more to come and a lot more drama to unfold on the roads of the Tour de France this year.
Well, there's going to be time gaps galore now as they continue to come in. Zubeldia is coming up towards the line as well. They're all over the place here now. The time gap on what is really a small first category climb. It's not a huge high mountain, but these riders are losing quite a lot of time here. There's going to be big time gap tonight in the Tour de France as we now enter a very, very hilly week. But Evans and Wiggins have shown us today they are up for the fight over the next 2 weeks to Paris.
This is the face of Nicholas Roach, the Irishman, coming up to the line now. He will cross the line. He's lost around about 1 minute and 4 seconds. Frank Schleck is the next man to cross there. He's actually ridden himself back into this race. Here is Richie Porte of the British Sky Pro cycling team from Australia.
He comes in losing 73 seconds. Michael Rogers comes in, their job done so superbly today for the team. Minute 22, he has lost there. And just look at this, the peloton has imploded on the climb today. And the riders continue to come in, but you know there's some big names losing big time. It'll all come out in the wash overnight, but there's no doubt who the winner was. Our first ever stage win for Chris Froome in the Tour de France.
Well, you know, this kid, Phil, who grew up in Kenya and went to start racing in South Africa, and in recent years took the British citizenship because he had the ability to do that, has now not only won a very interesting stage here, but he will also get himself the lead in the King of the Mountains classification. Funnily enough, at the start of the year, he was actually struck down with a nasty African illness called bilharzia. I've had that illness myself, and in fact, the treatment for the illness is probably worse than the disease itself.
Well, Levi Leipheimer crossing the line, losing about 3 minutes and 10 seconds there. That is a big loss on such a short climb.
Well, it is, but it's the first climber. That was a very clever move. We could see that Cadel Evans was trying to put himself between himself and Bradley Wiggins there, but all of a sudden, this man felt that he had the acceleration. He grew up at altitude, Phil. He grew up at 6,000 feet or 2,000 meters in the African plains, and they've done a great job today. It's the double, really, because Bradley Wiggins will also inherit the yellow jersey.
Sky Froome comes home as the winner with just under 5 hours. He beats Cadel Evans officially by 2 seconds. Wiggins also at 2 seconds, so they stay 10 seconds apart. Nibali at 7 seconds, and Rein Taaramäe did the ride from Estonia for the French Cofidis squad. He finished in 5th place.
No, and then look at a bit further down. Haimar Zubeldia lost 44 seconds. Pierre Roland, the best young rider last year, lost 46 seconds. Yanni Brakovic at the same time. Denis Menchov failed a little bit down towards the end, but it was a great acceleration in the last 100 meters from Chris Froome on the steepest part of the climb. He made his move, Phil, when it was a 20% grade, and he just opened up the gap immediately. That's the second psychological blow to Cadel Evans, but Cadel Evans did what he could to put Bradley Wiggins under pressure, and Wiggins just controlled, stayed there, knew that all he had to do was follow the wheel of Cadel Evans. His teammate would get the win and he would get the yellow jersey.
And Chris Froome rides to the top and becomes only the 8th rider in the history of the Tour de France to win for the United Kingdom. He joins a very elite group of cyclists, and by the way, British starters in the Tour in history has only been 60 riders. Only 31 of those 60 have ever seen Paris. Chris Froome is doing all right.
No.
Let's have a look now at our Michelob Ultra yellow jersey standings. There it is. Bradley Wiggins 10 seconds advantage tonight over Cadel Evans. They get the same time today. Nibali is third at 16. Ryan Tarame is fourth. Denis Menchov cracked a little bit but held his 5th place overall at 54 seconds there. So completing the top 10, Haimar Zubeldia has kept a high position. Nicholas Roach also. Chris Froome has come in at 9th now. Michael Rogers, another teammate of Wiggins, is in at 10th. Fabian Cancellara drops back to 11th place. We expected a fight from him. He gave it his best shot. He's 1 place ahead of Samuel Sanchez, the Olympic champion. TJ cracked a little bit today. Maybe the hill was a bit too fast for him. He'll come back, but for the moment he goes from 4th overall to 18th, now 3 minutes 9 seconds behind Bradley Wiggins. It's almost as if everybody's checking out and then allowing one man to leave the peloton, go up and catch the leader, Paul. It's amazing today the way they're attacking.
Well, everyone's been given the order of the day, get into the breakaway this afternoon, but you know, Team Sky and the management of Team Sky will not let a 20-man breakaway go clear, because that's much too dangerous to control in the latter part of the race. I think they will do everything they can here, and we're seeing them doing all of the pacemaking on the front to pull back this large breakaway. And if a breakaway forms of 5 or 6 riders, then they'll lift up the pedal a little bit and allow them their freedom.
Well, the thing is, this is a real mountain stage today, but more importantly, it's a short stage in the history of Tour de France stages. It's only 157 kilometres. That always leads to a very quick stage and very aggressive cycling, and Sky are going to have their hands full today.
Well, it's inside of 100 miles, and 98 miles to be exact. And yes, when you get a shorter stage, sometimes you get a much more violent and aggressive stage, and that's what we've seen from the word go this morning. Everyone has looked to try and get into that morning breakaway. But Team Sky, I think they're doing the right thing here. They're sitting at the front, they're setting the tempo, just making sure that that 20-man breakaway doesn't get too clear. Once I think they get to the tail end of that group, I think things will become a little bit calmer.
Well, at the moment, our computer is telling us that there's nobody of real importance to Team Sky who've gone up into that break. Jens Voigt is up there. Jeremy Roy, here he is, trying to get up there at the moment. So it's a good break to ease the pressure just now for Bradley Wiggins and the British team, who are using all of their men at the front in great team formation. This man here, though, Paul, he's had a terrific season this year, and he's going to be a little bit of a danger man, I think, if he can catch up with those leaders. Jeremy Roy is working his way across the gap. 34 seconds is the spread to the bunch. There's Team Sky working on the front. Brad Wiggins, his first day in the Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France, and his team aren't being given the day off. They're having to work very hard today. As we see down from the helicopter here, the peloton led by Team Sky. There is a break forming. It's saying on our computer there are 21 riders up in the leading group, and they are just about 40 seconds ahead.
Well, Team Sky are a well-drilled squad. It's quite interesting because they've been together. The main part of the team who are at the Tour de France have been together pretty much throughout the whole season in the races that they've attended. From right in the early month of February, the Tour of the Algarve, which was won by Richie Porte. Bradley Wiggins was 3rd overall there. Then through to Paris-Nice, Romandie and the Criterium du Dauphiné.
Well, Switzerland is a beautiful country as the riders now find dry roads here today, and that's Thomas Voigtler just signalling his car. He's having a real rough ride today. His family are on a camping car, actually, following the Tour de France and with his young daughter. But Dad is having a tough ride. He's either being delayed, he's crashing, or his problem with his knee keeps on reoccurring. But nonetheless, he's a character and he's still in the Tour de France. And the 40-year-old Jens Voigt driving the lead group at the moment. The team cars filtering around a crash which has just happened involving the Olympic champion Samuel Sanchez. As he lies on the ground here with the two medical crew are there. A teammate has been waiting for him as well, and I think he's been told to ride on, Jorge Azania. There's a few teammates arriving now. This is a real sad sight. Again, no apparent reason for this crash. A very good road. I think we can show it to you again as the crowd here are watching. And is it the fact? Well, it was actually Sanchez went down first. Now, there's a water bottle loose there, and I wonder. Valverde, by the way, is the rider on the right with the M on his jersey for Movistar. So Alejandro Valverde, he's done his left knee as well. A little bit of blood on that knee, but he's got up and walked away for a new bike. But Samuel Sanchez, I'm afraid, is not looking very good. The medical are examining him here. And he's shaking his head. I'm afraid we're going to see the abandonment here of the Olympic champion. And if he does have broken bones, then sadly, I doubt he will be in any state of mind or physical condition to ride and try and defend his title in the Olympic Games in London. This is unbelievable, this Tour de France this year. We have had so many crashes, and they've been catching the big names every time. So the medical assistants looking around here, and I think they're looking around for possibly the arrival of the ambulance as we rejoin the action. Samuel Sanchez appearing to be down and out of the Tour de France. We'll update you as we know. And still Jeremy Roy. Long chase to catch the leaders, and despite the melee he's left behind, he's now moved clear of the field. Now one man, the peloton aren't going to hunt him down yet because they'll think he must be crazy to try a long lone break today with so far still to go.
Well, he starts the day, Phil, in 98th position, at 21 minutes behind in the overall standing, so he'll be given a fair amount of freedom. He's no danger at all to the men who want to win this bike race overall. He's going out looking for some individual glory, because if a bike rider wins an individual stage of the Tour de France, you don't actually have to win it overall to go out of this race as a famous professional bike rider. And with a stage win to your tally, that makes you one of those men.
Well, Team Sky still driving along here, the peloton. That's the job when you've got the leader on your team. They'll be checking all of the time the movement of riders around them, but they're keeping a good tempo on the pace. But the pressure's on them now. If Wiggins is going to carry that maillot jaune into Paris 2 weeks today, that team is going to have a terrifically busy 2 weeks.
Well, that rider on the floor there, Phil, Sammy Sanchez, a defending champion at the Olympic Games. I wonder whether or not he'll be able to pick himself up from that. We'll find out how badly he's injured a little bit later on. But he was using the Tour de France as preparation for his defence. And Alejandro Valverde, also a man from Spain who could be a tip for the gold medal. But Sanchez, well, he's in tears.
And what a shame. He won the King of the Mountains title last year. He finished 4th in the Tour de France. As we entered the first full-on mountain stage today, here he is left in the road. He's not going forward.
Well, I know the doctor spent a long time looking at his clavicle. We'll find out whether or not there's a confirmation of that. But the way the doctor was handling him, you can see the gold streak across his jersey there. By the way, that gold streak was to indicate that he was the gold medalist in the Olympic Games in Beijing. And that was another crazy crash at the Tour.
Yes, it most certainly was, and Sanchez was underneath the wreck on this occasion as well. Meanwhile, the race proceeds on as Sanchez stays on the road. It's Jeremy Roy at the moment. He's built a lead of 18 seconds over the chase he left. The peloton are sitting off at just under 1 minute. Valverde, by the way, is quite serious here because he's chasing, but he's 2.5 minutes behind the leader. So he's approximately 1.5 minutes behind the peloton. So he's going to have to get some speed on to catch up with the bunch. This is a serious retard for this man.
It really is a difficult, exciting day because we expected this to happen. This is Vasily Kirienka from Team Movistar. He's a member of the same team as Alejandro Valverde, who's off the back of the race currently. He's trying to bridge up to the leading Frenchman, Jeremy Roy, who now leads this race by 21 seconds from a group of 19 riders.
Well, the people of the Jura here, we're going into Porrentruy in Switzerland today. We crossed the borders with 43 miles left to race today, just over 64 kilometres into the finish when we enter Switzerland. But this area here around the Jura Mountains and the southern end of the Vosges mountain chain They've really gone to town to welcome the Tour de France. Well, there we are, Paul. There's no doubt that Sanchez is going to hospital and not to the finish in Switzerland today at the Tour. The crowd politely applaud, but what a terrible shame. Well, we're going to see plenty of beautiful forest in this region today as we go up and down here. We're heading for the feeding station shortly once we're over the next second category climb. Then we've got 3 left so far. A sprint, of course, a first category climb. If I was going to win the stage today, which I would never have in my case, I'd go for gold at the top of that first category climb. It's a 10 miles, 16k home.
It's ideally suited for a lone late attack, and it's a very nasty climb with the final kilometre of the climb at 17% gradient. That's a veritable wall in front of you. As I say, only 2 miles long, that climb, but the average gradient of it is around about 15%.
Well, we're now on the Côte de Seignelay. It's just under 5 miles in length, 7.8 kilometres, a gradient of 6%. Takes us up to 979 metres above sea level. Amazingly, though it doesn't feel it, Paul, that's over 3,250 feet.
Yeah, this is a strange part of the world, the Jura Mountains, because although there are never really any high peaks of 5,000, 6,000 feet in altitude, there's a lot of climbs that peak out at 1,000 meters or 3,000 feet, and it's the repetitive nature of the small climbs here in this part of the world that makes the racing very difficult.
Well, all the cheers for a Frenchman heading to Switzerland today. This is Jeremy Roy, the Frenchman pushing on and still holding his pace, and not far behind him, he might just come into view, should be Vasily Kirienka. Kirienka could be a very good ally today. They're not going to chase him down. He's lost 21 minutes in the Tour de France so far. We're on the 4th climb of the day now, taking us to the 73-kilometre point. Vasily Kirienka here is the second man on the road. He's trying to catch up with the lone French leader, Jeremy Roy. Looking here, it's still 5 kilometres to go to the top of this 4th climb of the day. The beautiful scenery of France, we'll see in a moment. Well, this is poor old Tommy Vauclair here from the Europcar team, 4th in the Tour de France last year, leader of the race for 10 days. He came here with a suspected problem with his knee, and it's been confirmed he's having a real struggle to stay in the Tour de France, and he doesn't want to abandon, but he's lost a lot of time already. This is the peloton, the advanced group of the peloton now, beginning to move up here. They're picking up Kirienka, who is trying to catch up with the leader, Jeremy Roy. This was a while ago. Jens Voigt also got picked up. He was out there as well. He went over the top on the first 2 climbs in first place. He really went off with a mission today. Attacking from the gun, he would allow nobody up there, and he finally got away and took the first 2 climbs of the day. But it hasn't worked out. A very attentive peloton as Voigt comes back to it, always led by the men in black, Team Sky. This is Tommy Vauclair here, puffing and blowing, but he won't give up without a fight. It is the Tour de France, let's not forget that. We know that when you've got to go, you've got to go, but why on a climb like this? There must have been some indication to the race that this was going to happen.
Well, I think he just felt it was the right time. He knew that his team was the one that was doing all of the pacemaking. None of the other teams wanted to work hard at this point, so he knew now's as good a time as any. And you can feel that when you've been a professional bike rider for many times. You know when the peloton actually wants to have a little bit of a breather.
Well, let's try and reset the scene for you today, because this has started off the first day for the man in yellow to defend. A very complicated day indeed. We had attack after attack. At the moment, we do have Jeremy Roy out in front. He's coming up 87 kilometres, 55 miles or so from the finish. This is the second group on the road. It's still quite a big group here as they all keep the pressure on. Nobody in this group are within minutes of the yellow jersey of Bradley Wiggins. That's why he's not too worried about them as we continue to climb quite high, almost 1,000 metres above sea level now. As Jeremy, look at the crowd around the corner.
Well, we're very much in Switzerland now. We're in the canton of the Jura. Switzerland is made up, instead of counties like in the United Kingdom, Switzerland is made up of cantons. And the Jura canton is the 26th and last of all the Swiss cantons to enter into the Confederation in 1979.
In fact, this is the climb which has brought us across the frontier. There's no big frontier anymore between these European countries. But this man is now climbing up the mountain into the Swiss countryside. And we're looking at the leader of the first full mountain stage of racing in the Tour de France today, stage 8, as we head into Switzerland now. We're on Swiss roads here at the moment. In fact, as we come up the fourth climb of the day, that was the leader, Jeremy Roy. He's inside the kilometre. The chase group is inside. They're about 300 metres, 300 yards behind the lone leader. This is the chase group, and not far behind the chase group, about a minute, is the main peloton of the Tour de France. Beautiful crowd here as Switzerland now welcomes the Tour de France. Well, we've seen Jeremy Roy go out on these lone sorties a few times in his career, and this is going to be quite rewarding for him. He'll get some good points on this second category climb in the King of the Mountains. Norwegian flags flying on the left. They've got Edvard Boysenhagen in the race, of course.
Well, he hasn't got that much of an advantage over the group behind him. In fact, there's a rider from Astana around about 200 metres behind this man, and the group that he left is now at 48 seconds. So if he gets some help from the Astana rider and come across the gap, they may well be able to consolidate their lead.
The lone man, we're going into the housing estate at the village here of Les Émivois. And he's going to feel all the pleasure of leading the Tour de France over the fourth second category climb of the day.
Well, as we go over the top of this climb here, the Côte de Saint-Lizier, this area was actually decimated by the Black Plague, which came across the whole of the region in the 14th century. And it was an area that was made very, very famous by the horses.
Well, look at this, Paul. This is your man, Johnny Hoogerland here, who is going for the King of the Mountain points. Second place gets points today.
Yes, certainly. Johnny Hoogerland made famous last year by that very dramatic crash when he was in a breakaway group of 5 riders. They were overtaken by a media car, and then all of a sudden the media car swerved into the breakaway and catapulted this man and Juan Antonio Fletcher of Spain into a field at the side of the road. But unfortunately for Johnny Hoogerland, he in fact, Phil, ended up with 33 stitches.
Yes, he most certainly did. And if you see the rear of Johnny, you'll see stripes on the back of his legs and his back if he had his jersey off. The scars remain. Looks like he's been whipped, in fact. Anyway, the peloton being driven by Team Sky, all in front of the new leader of the Tour de France, taking the jersey yesterday away from the Swiss rider Fabien Cancellara, who nonetheless has said today, I'm looking forward to racing on my home roads. Just over the border now, back in his country of Switzerland. So Hoogerland goes over in third place because we still have Kessiakoff, the Swedish rider, in second place. And this is the 20-rider chase group. Again, not containing anybody, immediately worrying the riders in the main field. The best place is Tony Galopin. He's 3 minutes and 13 seconds back. If we catch a glimpse of him, I'll point him out to you. He's number 13 in the race. And the main peloton still under the control here of the chase. They're timed at the moment around about 2:28 behind the 2 men up front. We still have 2 men up front, and they're going for the finish. If they get half a shot at it today, they might not be seen before we get to the finish. And it is Rein Taaramäe. What a great ride, and the Cofidis team he races for has had a terrible season. They even sacked their manager, but it all went right for them yesterday. He moved right up the overall classification and became the best young rider, taking the white jersey away from USA's TJ Van Garderen. He wore it for a single day last year, and he's had it for 1 day so far this year, but he's looking a lot more solid this time around, and he's had some terrible problems this year with his health. But it looks now that it is all starting to come a little bit better for him. So the Estonian there is now 25 years of age. He was diagnosed early this year as mononucleosis, and in March he also broke his elbow in April in Spain. So it's all going right for him now after that wonderful ride yesterday. We are still climbing a second category climb here at the 60-mile point of the race, the Côte du Soleil. And it's a tough climb, and 2 riders are out front and 2 are trying to get on terms. So they're in trouble a little bit. We're back up with the leaders now as they start to split up on this long, steep climb. This is a tough climb, as we said. Got some very steep gradients, and this is of just about the steepest now towards the summit, where it's on around 14%. And the strong men are using it now to break up this rather ungainly chasing bunch of 20.
Well, one man taking advantage now is Kesyakov, because he'd seen that the group was starting to come back together. He felt the best part of honour for him was to get off the front of the group and try and go it alone. He's another one of those riders who originally was a mountain biker before turning to the road, very much like a number of bike riders in this race, like Jean-Christophe Perrault, the silver medalist from Beijing, who has found himself in the breakaway this afternoon.
Well, he came through that corridor of noise there, but he's broken out into a little bit of vacuum here as Kesyakov tries to cross to that banner on top of the climb. There still remains the big sprint point for the green jersey down the road, and then we've got two really tough climbs. Here he goes. Pleasant applause, I think we can call that one, for Fredrik Kesyakov, the Swedish rider on the Kazakhstan team Astana. Gets the points over the top. There are second, third and fourth also for the points. And just looking down, Jeremy Watt would have gone over there in second place. They've got four. They're going to build up now nicely. Kesyakov may have gone, but this group now 8 riders coming together in the chase. Now this is becoming much more manageable to escape for the day.
Because I think when you see a group of 8 riders, then we'll start to see a cohesion. Sagan is holding on. He's the rider in the green jersey sitting on the back. He's just 22 years of age, but he's been an unbelievable revelation. Well, we saw him last year in the Amgen Tour of California, but I think this year is his breakout year. He won 5 stages of the Amgen Tour of California in the United States this year with a dominating style. The first 4 stages, nobody could get round him. But the only thing that he did have a problem with was a couple of the mountains up in the high Sierras.
Wonderful work being done by Christian Knies on that peloton for Sky. All right, well, as we go with the leader here, let's just have a check out here at our Road ID Challenge fan predictions, your predictions, and see who you thought would win today's stage. 26% expecting Cadel Evans to fight back quickly, 12% for Wiggins, 8 for Frank Schleck, 6 for Peter Sagan. And, well, at the moment, none of those guys are going to win, but we might, it could all change yet. Don't forget, head on over to roadid.com/ride. Make your prediction for tomorrow's stage. You'll be entered to win daily prizes and a 2013 Trek Madone. I think if Cadel Evans found himself in the lead by the last climb, then he might have a go to win. But at the moment, it's going the way of the attackers. The next big prize along the road is the sprint for the green jersey, and at the moment we've got a Swedish rider pushing on by himself. This is Kesyakov of Team Astana, clear of the break. To the Tour de France today, Jens Voigt was the man that was out front for an early part when he broke away, won 2 climbs. As we continued through the climbs, there was constant attacking throughout, and sadly the man we lost today, Samuel Sanchez, has gone in the golden helmet, the Olympic champion of 4 years ago, and I doubt he'll be able to defend now in London. And now we've got Fredrik Kesyakov, who is still in the lead, and I think, you know, Paul, he's just got this chance he might stay away because it's his first Tour de France, he's full of enthusiasm, and he's lost a lot of time.
Yeah, I also think because of the nature of the course, because we've got 2 climbs on the horizon, and he's not really losing much time on the climbs. He looks exceptionally good, Phil, I have to say, and he won't lose because of his mountain bike ability, coming from having participated in 2 Olympic Games in the mountain bike. There's no way he's going to lose very much time on the downhill parts of the course. There's 2 massive climbs left down towards the end, difficult climbs, a second category and a first category. The final climb of the day is a nasty little brute with percentages kicking up to around about 17%, and that is almost as steep as the finishing climb of yesterday.
Well, the shadow boxing's been there all day today, and Bradley Wiggins and his boys have really kept that team and paying attention to the men they want to watch. Now it looks as though we've got a little bit of a change at the front now, because Peter Sagan's Liquigas team has come to the front, but it won't be for Sagan, will it?
Well, don't discount him, because I spoke to the great Sean Kelly before the start. Sean Kelly won the points competition in the Tour de France on 4 separate occasions and won a lot of stages himself, and he actually put the name forward of Peter Sagan, although I think maybe that final climb of the day might be a little bit more steep than his liking.
Well, they're the gaps which were given to the riders. They're slightly different to the ones we have on our computer. We've got a minute 17 to this group we're looking at here from the leader, 3 minutes 11 or 3 minutes 18 back to the main pack. That's the spread of the race right now. And all of the principal leaders of the Tour de France are back with Bradley Wiggins at 3:18.
Yep. We're not too far away, Phil, from leaving the canton of Bern and going back into the canton of the Jura. Switzerland is made up of 26 different cantons, but the canton of Bern is rather an interesting canton because it's a mixture, it's a bilingual canton if you like. There's a mixture of German and French speaking here. Switzerland split up into 4 different languages. You've got regions where they speak French, regions where they speak Italian, regions where they speak German, and regions where they speak Romagna, which is a Romany language.
Yeah, and region where Cancellara speaks them all, which is the same region as it happens of Bern, and he speaks all of those languages as we've heard him at the nightly interviews when he was race leader. So just sitting at the back of this line at the moment, you might see him. There he is. Last man is Levi Leipheimer there, just hanging on to the coattails of the peloton today. There's the beauty of Switzerland. We're heading to the last 2 big challenges of the day. Tomorrow it'll be showdown, of course. We have our first long time trial, just over 25.5 miles. Another wonderful appearance as we continue across Switzerland here with the big battle. Well, so far so good, Paul. Bradley Wiggins and Cadel Evans haven't been troubled today after a bit of a rough first hour as we head on to the penultimate climb of the day, the Caccarel. Time trial day tomorrow. Who's going to win it?
Well, very good question, Phil. I think maybe Fabian Cancellara might win it because he's got incredible form. But the first Tour de France time trial is never the same as the final one. The one just before we get up to Paris is a better indicator of who the most strong man is. More than likely, Cancellara is a big favourite, but that's not the battle we're interested in. The battle we're interested in is the battle between Cadel Evans and Bradley Wiggins. I would have to, having looked at the performance throughout the year, give the advantage to Bradley Wiggins. He beat Cadel Evans by more than 1 minute and 30 seconds in a long time trial at the Criterium de Dauphiné, but that was a month ago.
Yeah,
and things can change in your body, so it'll be a closer battle, but I'd still give advantage to Bradley Wiggins.
Well, we'll all know tomorrow with the time trial, and everybody looking forward to that. It's 41.5 kilometres, and Bradley will look to try and increase his lead there. Plenty of effort being made now as we start the penultimate climb of the day. This is a nasty little climb, this too, the Col de la Caccarel, or the Côte de la Caccarel. As they start their climb here, it is 4.3 kilometres long, so it's just on 3 miles, just slightly less. These riders trying to get back on terms. Let's see how they go. They should have got Peter Sagan in the all-green jersey, 5th in line now. They really believe that if they can get Sagan to the finish today, he's going to win the stage. That would really send shockwaves through to the sprinters because they would be out of the hunt for green if Sagan was to produce a win like that, I think. As they continue through on the inside of the roundabout here, which is the way Bradley Wiggins always goes round the roundabout back home in the UK. There's the information on the Caccarel. It's 834 metres. It's not quite as high as the ones we've been over, but it's now more crucially placed. The Eiffel Tower, you'll see 1 or 2 of those around the route today because it's sort of selling the link between the Finnish town of Porrentruy and Paris because they've done the high-speed train linking them up. So there we are, as the riders now settle down to start this climb, the penultimate climb of the day. We've just about started the lower slopes as Jeremy Roy is turning the screw again, trying to split up this breakaway, but Liquigas is coming. They're driving the peloton now. Could all change soon. We'll take a break. 12 minutes we've been on air, and looking here now, we've got one leader. Look at this though, the Liquigas Cannondale team. They're not making a great impression, I have to say. 3:14 the gap to the leader, but they're hunting at the group in between. And this is not easy, this climb, because guys are now beginning to unhitch at the back. Brief look at the back of the peloton, Paul. There's quite a lot of riders now being dispatched out of the back of the big pack.
Yeah, I tell you what, there was a lot of pressure being done. Tony Galopin has really impressed me. He's been put under pressure a number of times and fought his way back into this race. Well, if I had any thoughts that Fabian Cancellara was going to win the stage for Switzerland this afternoon, Phil, I think I'll withdraw them, because here he is at the back end of the group with his teammate Jens Voigt.
Yes, it's not a pleasant feeling, I would imagine, going off the back, very, very close to where he actually comes from in Bern. But nonetheless, he's not a great climber. In every other department of cycling, he is the best. So Jeremy Roy has ridden a terrific race today. He's yo-yoed with the lead all day long. He's been up the front. He's got dropped by Kessiakoff. He's now trying to pedal back up to him here. And that is Galopin just below, trying to get on terms. Finished third this year in the Tour of Oman back in February. But the peloton still have some reason to believe they can get Peter Sagan up to the leaders.
Well, you know, he's young. He's 22 years of age. He's won 3 stages in the Tour de France so far. He also said that he felt that if he could get points on these stages where there's a climb towards the finish and get rid of the sprinters, he could lay down some serious foundations to be the first Slovakian rider ever to win the green jersey points competition.
16 wins this year already for Sagan, and we're looking at the man on the start right now, briefly anyway, and he's still hurting himself as he completes heading into the last kilometre onto the penultimate climb of the day. These hills have got nothing on the last climb, which is the Col de la Croix. It's the only col, which is the only mountain of the day. These have all been classed as coats. That is Thibaut Pinot setting the pace at the front. It was, so it's not Jeremy Roy now. We've switched here. That is Pinot. 1 kilometre to go for Kessiakoff in the front.
Yeah, Kessiakoff holding on to a very good advantage. 1 minute and 11 seconds over the 2 chasers.
The lone figure of the Swedish mountain biker now, inside 1 kilometre to go on the second to last climb of the day. They
recuperate and not ride too hard on the run towards the finish.
Well, if you need some encouragement, look at the different nations here shouting on this Swedish rider. Côte de la Cacarel, he is over the top in first place. He was the first man over the top of the previous climb. He's now been in the lead for just over 20 miles now, some 33 kilometres. These are the 2 chasers here coming up. If they reach him, I don't think anybody will see them today. As they continue now, this will be Pinot and Galopin.
Well, they're looking at 1 minute and 8 seconds. I think that Kessiakoff will be hoping that he can survive on his own to the top of the Col de la Croix, because if he goes over the top of that climb in first place, he'll be the new leader of the King of the Mountains classification tonight.
Now we look down at the peloton. These are the 2 chasers. They're sprinting for the top now. There's no doubt that Liquigas feel that Peter Sagan can get up there if they can lead him to the summit. They've got 1 more climb to come, and it's a real toughie. 3:32 is the gap. The clock counts them up towards the summit here. There's going to be no sprint from these 2 boys. It'll be Thibaut Pinot and Tony Galopin, just under 1 minute.
Well, just over the just on the 1 minute mark. That corresponds to around about a kilometre in distance. But what's more interesting is the fact that Team Liquigas Cannondale really do believe that Peter Sagan can get over the next climb of the day. If he gets over that, Phil, we'll see a rip-roaring chase to try and pull this whole race back together, because all of a sudden Liquigas Cannondale are going to think they've got another stage win.
Well, as far as I can see in this peloton, there are no so-called sprinters left in it. So if Sagan got green jersey points today, he would be a very, very happy man. It would be a huge steal over the rest of the riders. As this continues on now, look, here we go. We're picking off the riders from the breakaway, and just coming up here is the peloton with the fast tempo, still being timed out at around 3:29, 3:30. We'll see what happens when they go over the summit of the climb. There's the banner. Let's check the clock, and they're going under at 3:26 now, so they're not really gaining, although they look as though they're chasing pretty hard. I think they've got a problem with Kessiakoff today. So 3:26 was the gap. 80 kilometers, just 12 miles to go to the finish now. We've still got the big climb, the Col de la Croix, still to come. But our one rider from Sweden is ahead. He's being chased down by just approximately 58 seconds back to Tony Galopani's number 13 and Thibaut Pinot, two Frenchmen, desperate now to try and steal a stage for France on day 9 of the Tour. As we continue on now, another beautiful little town that we're passing through now here, and this is the town of Saint-Urson in the Clos de Doubs. We should see the River Doubs down there as we pass through, circumnavigating with our helicopter. As we're heading now towards the start of the climb, and far right of our picture there, the first category ascent of the Col de la Croix. It's a toughie, believe me, it's not an easy climb, this one. And if Kessiakoff is not feeling really good, this climb will snap at his legs. It's a tough one. And those two riders might yet scramble across to join him on the breakaway. He just has started the bottom slopes now. This is a mythical pass. From the top of the Col de la Croix, you can actually see the Anjou Plain, which is the area of the plain, which is the area where we are here. It goes from the foothills of the Jura to neighbouring France. Gets high enough, you might even see France today on a clear day. Well, we are now on the lower slopes of the Col de la Croix. It is 3.7 kilometres, which is only just under 2.5 miles, Paul. But more importantly, this is a real steep climb. Now, can the boys from Peter Sagan bring them up?
Well, I'm pretty certain if they wanted to, they could, but they're still locked in at 3 minutes and 15 seconds. It all depends on whether this man at the front starts to crumble after his long breakaway.
3.5 hours of racing now, Paul, and this man, it's all down to whether he can survive on this climb, because once over the top, if he's got a minute over the top, I think because of his mountain biking background, he will fly to the finish in Porrentruy. Now on the big climb of the day. When they get to the top, it'll be 10 miles downhill to the finish. The Col de la Croix is the mountain. It really is a brute of a climb, and taking them onto it is the Swedish rider here, Fredrik Kessiakoff. And the man chasing is a young French rider in his first tour as well, Thibaut Pinot. Meanwhile, back in the peloton, a move of 3 minutes from the leader to the peloton. Peter Sagan there has got 3 of his teammates to set the pace. So he wouldn't do that if he didn't believe he could conquer this mountain and win the day. Well, as we go with the peloton here now, and they continue to stamp on these pedals, Boysenhagen has done his work for the race leader and is now dropped off the back with George Hincapie. Well, Hincapie works for Cadel Evans, Boysenhagen works for Bradley Wiggins. They've done the work well, they've now taken it back. They're saving strength on the last climb of the day and dropping away.
Well, Daniel Hondo was the big sprinter slipping backwards there, and it's amazing to see that still keeping in contact is the man in the green jersey, Peter Sagan. Dan Martin was the rider from Garmin Sharp there, slipping backwards.
Lotto have got themselves to the front as well now, and this, of course, is for their team leader, which is Jürgen van den Broek, trying to keep him in a good place to springboard.
Well, we'll get a chance to see just how good Peter Sagan is, because this is a serious chaser. Jelle Venendert is the rider on the front. Casualties starting to slip away from the peloton. Sylvain Chavanel, now that's a bit of a surprise to me. He's the rider wearing 192.
Yeah, but I think he's realised what's happening here, and he's moving round the debris and trying to get back up to that group. We pick up the leader out on the front now, because we now have Fredrik Kessiakoff. He's made his bid way down the road. Although he's 32 years of age, you know, this man's coming to his first Tour de France here, and a perfect weight at 172 pounds to conquer the mountains. We don't get many Swedish winners of stages of the Tour de France. The only one I remember is Magnus Backstedt, rather. And I'm sure he's watching these pictures right now back in the UK. Up to the leader, 1 versus 1 for the moment. The peloton is reducing drastically in size, and Cadel Evans isn't far from the front of the chase. There he is, Cadel Evans on the left. Is he building up, do you think, to test Bradley Wiggins on this climb?
Well, the one thing that he's thinking about is we see Alejandro Valverde going backwards, Alexander Vinokourov also being dropped in the turquoise jersey there. This race is being very, very difficult. Number 15 also
Alexander
slipping
Kloden.
away, Andreas Kloden.
Kloden, who had the bad day yesterday, complained about the tweets, the press release issued by his team saying he had bad legs all day, which he denied. side. He's got bad legs again today towards the end of the stage. Massive crowds now as we approach the summit. This is Pinot. This is TJ Van Garderen here, number 81, also finding the pressure of the day on this climb. He too has lost contact with his team right now. Oh, sorry, Wayne Taramay in the white jersey. It was Van Garderen. Van Garderen, as far as I know, Paul, then must be still in that select bunch.
It just goes to show how 24 hours can make such a massive difference in the way your body reacts to the efforts that you have to put in on a day, every day in the Tour de France. So 21 stages. It really is an incredible event. The group, I did not expect, Phil, to see reduced to such a small group of riders by this final climb of the day. Bear in mind, this climb is only 3 kilometres long, but it's having the same effect as yesterday.
Well, it's very steep. It's 14% and increasing to 11 in places. So this is a very tough climb. Kessiakoff is having to work now. Look at those shoulders roll, and take a look over those shoulders, because here he comes, a Frenchman contacting the lead. Well, I know we're in Switzerland, but they're certainly shouting the Frenchman up this mountain now. Here he comes, Frederic Kessiakoff of Sweden, and a Frenchman coming up. Is it going to be a Frenchman's day to win a stage of the Tour de France? This are two first-time riders in the Tour de France. They're riding like veterans now on the Col de la Croix.
Well, the man in second position, Phil, is only 22 years of age. He's been a professional for 3 years. He's one of France's young talents who are breaking out this year at the Tour.
The youngest man in the Tour de France, Thibaut Pinot, at 22 years and 32 days, has just gone past one of the oldest men, really, the 32-year-old Kessiakoff. Now he knows he's in the lead in the Tour de France. If he gets to the top with nobody else with him, Paul, it's all downhill to the finish.
He's got a very good chance here, Phil. If he gets over the top, he's got a 2-minute advantage over the main field. But the main field is riding like an incredible pace a little bit further down on the slopes. But watch out for Kessiakoff. He won't give up. He'll try and stay in contact as much as he can. He comes from a mountain background, and he will take a few risks to try and get himself back into the race if he can over the summit of this climb.
It could be a terrific descent down here by these two. A mountain biker chasing a Frenchman who is 10 years younger than he is. Look at the crowd here. 2 minutes 3 is the gap. Paul, if they get inside 2 minutes at the top, can they sweep up those two guys on the way down?
They certainly can, but this man is riding with all of France's hopes on his shoulders this afternoon through a tunnel of noise.
The Col de la Croix, a Frenchman tops it. There's now, look at him accelerate. There's now 16 kilometers to the finish, and this man is free to fly off the ramps. Now, can the man that's been setting the pace, Kessiakoff, he's 10 seconds behind. 10 seconds is the same as Cadel Evans to Bradley Wiggins as well. And up comes Venendert, but they're continuing to count now. That's lower down the slope.
They are going very hard indeed. You can see Cadel Evans up into second place there. Bradley Wiggins has to follow this move this afternoon. There are men getting shelled out of the back because of the acceleration of Jelle Venendert. But where is his teammate, Jurgen van den Broek?
Which is the whole reason of him doing the pace. And Cadel Evans is right there, so vigilant and watching. And take a look, two men behind. Number 1 is the yellow jersey. He cannot afford to let a gap open of 10 seconds. Cadel looks over his shoulder. He looks straight into the sunglassed eyes of Bradley Wiggins, and Chris Froome is hanging on behind Wiggins.
Well, that's Chris Froome in the white jersey with the red spots, but look how Team Radio Shack Nissan responded to that. 1, 2, 3 riders have got across. They've been so criticised since the start of this race, but I think they're not doing too badly. Thank you very much.
I would agree there. They're coming up. The clock is counting. Have they done enough to save the day? Because our leader is speeding to the finish.
Just smoothly riding his way onto the back there is the Russian rider who's in 5th place place overall at the start of the day. Denny Menchoff, he saw the danger of a move like this and said, I'm going to have a pit action. Look at that on Cadel Evans. Bear in mind, Cadel Evans also, Phil, come track back. Look at the time gap. It's not much.
They've closed it to 1:39, 16 kilometres for the peloton, 14.5 kilometres for the leader. We are now going to be treated to one descent down to Porrentruy.
Well, Cadel Evans really needs to look over his shoulder there, Phil, because about 5 seconds off the back end of that group was his own teammate, the American TJ Van Garderen.
They're over the top. Very soon they will see 15 kilometres to go.
This is the leader now, Thibaut Pinot. He knows he's got a very hard job ahead of him to try and survive, but can he do it? He's 22 years of age. He's got youth and enthusiasm on his side.
To say I'd love the Frenchman to win. He's done everything right. He's the youngest man in the race. He's even younger than Peter Sagan. As Thibaut Pinot now speeds towards the finish. We will take a break, but when we come back, we will take them all to the finishing line. Can a Frenchman get the stage win today? We are on Kesiakov here. He has been hitting speeds of 50 miles an hour. That is a real tricky bend as Nibali now pushes the pace here. Now, let me just take you back while you were away. This happened. Watch this. He was approaching this bend at 45 miles an hour. The mountain biker wasn't going to get round that corner. He locked up his back wheel twice. He just about held it, and then he reorganized the chase. He's still descending now, and he's going faster and faster, and he's still in second place. But you know, Cadel Evans, he's now riding behind Bradley Wiggins, but he's attacked him twice on this descent to try and rid himself of him. This is an amazing tour now, Paul. We are projecting our favourites again down this mountain. They are testing each other on the descent.
They will, but I was just thinking, Phil, what would have been all about if the rain had been on the road this morning, because it absolutely poured down overnight. It's cleared up and the roads are dry, but if these roads were wet and slippery, we'd be looking at a completely different ball game.
Well, it's a very select group, but it's Cadel Evans, the defending champion, taking down towards the finish now. They are trying to catch the two leaders, but they're also infighting and testing each other, as we see a group there of about 7 or 8. Back to the French leader, the youngest man of the Tour de France. He's still running away from the Col de la Croix, and Porrentruy won't come fast enough for him in Switzerland today. He is now 9.6 kilometres from the line, just 6 miles, even less.
Well, 10 kilometres or 6 miles at this speed is going to take them 12.5 minutes to cover. But what does surprise me, Phil, we've got all of the top men in the overall standings in that group. One man has had an awful day this afternoon, 4th overall at the start, the youngster Rein Taramay. He got left behind on the climb. Closer to the finish line. He will be dreaming now of a victory, but he cannot slow down. He's got to just concentrate on the job in hand.
The flag of Scotland flies proudly for David Miller, no doubt, but as we come round one of the flyovers here now, it is a Frenchman trying to wind his way into the finish in Porrentruy. He has just over 3 kilometres to go, and he's far from safe as he kicks again.
3 kilometres, Phil, is going to take him inside of 4 minutes to get to the finishing line. Oh, well done there.
Goodness me, where's he gone?
That was agile, that was clever. He was thinking, because if he'd gone round that roundabout the other way, Phil, it would have been a longer distance and he would have lost a few more seconds. It goes to show that he's thinking properly, he's still concentrating, and he's still fighting with his machine. Look at the way he's battling those pedals.
Just 22 2 months ago, Thibaut Pinot of France, and I'll tell you, the French will be just dreaming now of a victory from their young star here. There's the compact chase group. They've gone the long way round. Oh no, they haven't. They've changed their minds.
Well, don't forget, Phil, these are seasoned professionals. These are men who know how to win some of the biggest bike races in the world. But I'll tell you one thing, they are shaving off 5 seconds off his lead in every minute at the moment. And that, my calculation, means this man is going to survive as long as he can keep this tempo riding up.
37 seconds. We're looking for 2 kilometres. That looked to me like a Radio Shack rider who stole a little lead. If it is, then the other Radio Shack riders will try to slow the chase down, and that could become advantage Pinot.
Into town, downtown, a beautiful little Swiss town in the canton of the Jura. The crowd are going ballistic here, not for a Swiss rider, but for a French rider. And that, in fact, is Jürgen van den Broek, who's jumped out of that gap. The jerseys are very confusing at
They
the
are,
moment.
from the
They
sky.
all look very, very similar because they've got a black shoulder and a white patch down the middle.
But that's a very good move by Jurgen van der Broek. He's a player for overall. We're crossing Porrentruy. Enjoy the atmosphere of the Tour. Marc Madiot there, twice winner of Paris-Roubaix. This is one of his huge moments of his career to see this young kid race for gold.
Well, I don't think you have to translate that, do you, Phil?
No.
Tuvak Gagné, you are going to win. He is convinced now. 1.5 kilometres to go.
Well, we're hearing that Cadel Evans is launching a lone attack from the group. Now, how Wiggins is going to respond to that? We're looking at Jurgen van den Broek, and that is Cadel Evans trying to reach him.
Well, he did this in the recent Criterium du Dauphiné, and they cannot allow Bradley Wiggins to sit by. Watch this, Bradley Wiggins has seen this move. The excitement is all at the front.
This is an amazing Tour de France. We are 1 kilometre to go. The young Frenchman is trying to win. Cadel Evans is trying to get 11 seconds to become the leader of the Tour. Now that is an incredible move by Evans.
Evans will fight every inch of the way. We've still got 2 weeks to go in this Tour de France. What he's trying to do here, Phil, is try and steal the yellow jersey away from Bradley Wiggins to start tomorrow's time trial in last position so he can get the advantage of the time checks.
This is a superb ride by the youngest man in the Tour de France, and he's French. When they built the motorway locally, they found bones from the Jurassic era. That explains the dinosaur there. Now he's got it, and he salutes Marc Madiot. This is a huge moment in French cycling because of his age.
And it's always great when you can win on a Sunday in the Tour de France because it makes the front page of all of the Monday morning newspapers, and Marc Madiot will know all about that, having won Paris-Roubaix on 2 occasions. Look at the joy.
Well, Marc Madiot has chosen some great riders for his French team over the years, but he's sure found a great one now. This is it. He's getting ready to throw his arms in the air. His first Tour de France, the youngest man in the race. He can salute his public, even if we are on Swiss roads now. But the interest for us is behind him. Is Cadel Evans going to steal 11 seconds and become the leader of the Tour? And the answer is no. He's back in the pack. It's a sprint for second place.
Well, Bradley Wiggins was very attentive indeed. You can see there they're lining this up for Toli Galopin to try and get second place.
Well, he is a good sprinter, and he might be the best, but Evans is going to have a go at him as well. Cadel Evans has no time bonuses. Wiggins is following him to make sure he's got the same time. Well done, Cadel. That's a great second place for him, and I think probably Wiggins got third or Galopin.
I'll tell you one thing, Phil, this psychological battle, this psychological warfare will continue every day as we move forward.
I'm sorry, Paul, I'm just thinking what an incredibly good ride by Cadel Evans that was today.
Brilliant ride by Cadel Evans. He really took the race by the horns. He tried to do everything that he could as TJ Van Garderen is the rider in the black and red jersey there from BMC Racing. If the time gaps are right, at the end of the day, he could see himself going back into the lead in that white jersey competition for the best young rider.
Well, it's a possibility. We'll see if Taramay has lost time. He must have given a lot of energy yesterday. Levi Leipheimer is in this group. So it's a long way back. I don't think he can get all his time back today, but it'll all come out when we start the calculations. A terrific victory for France today, and a victory for the future of French cycling, I think, as well. And Cadel Evans pipping Bradley Wiggins on the line.
And that's Nicolas Rocha leads this next group home, and another rider from Radio Shack in there as well, and that's Maxime Montfort. He started the day in 10th place. Here is the white jersey. He's surrounded by his teammates. He's going to hold on to that this afternoon, but it's going to be a great battle lining up for that competition too now.
I think we've got a great battle. This Tour de France has really come alive in the last 2 days. We have the time trial tomorrow, don't forget. But clearly Cadel Evans and Wiggins are up for this fight, and now we've seen the intrusion of others who have shown much better days today. After a week of crashes and being knocked around the roads of France, they've started to shine well on the road of Switzerland. Just on 2 minutes has slipped away now as this group comes in with the white jersey of Rein Taaramäe, the champion of Estonia, coming home.
But it just goes to show and show you, Phil, that you have to be very careful on the amount of energy that you use on specific days, because one day or another it'll come back and haunt you.
He's over the line safely. Behind him is Laurence Tendam as well, as they all reach for their computers and press the stop button to check what it is. Now we're behind scenes here with the winner of the day, Thibaut Pinot. So let's have a look if we can show you the results now. We're now in Porrentruy. We're actually out in a field on the other side of the town, but you can't tell. So these are the results. Pinot winning from defending Tour champion by just 26 seconds. Cadel Evans, Tony Galopin did get third in the photo, ahead of Bradley Wiggins in fourth, but importantly, all same time these riders. Vincenzo Nibali warming up for a great tour, I think, the Italian. He finished in 5th place, also 26 seconds. Jürgen van den Broek, what a shame he lost time yesterday through no fault of his own. He's up there today in 6th. Chris Froome, the winner yesterday, 7th. Denny Menchov of Russia in 8th. Zubeldia 9th, Frank Schleck 10th. Only Frank Schleck really in the top 10 has lost big time in this race thus far. Chris Horner coming in at 30 seconds in the end, 4 seconds behind those back. And Kessiakov got back there to finish in 12th place. What a wonderful day for the French, and for one particular Frenchman, Thibaut Pinot. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll give you the post-race wrap with Liam and Bobke with the Proform.com wrap-up.